Okay,
What are
we're
they called
almost
again, Tyler?
It's
Which
so
make of lizard?
Tokay geckos.
Tokyo. Cool.
colorful ones, the rainbow colors.
Yeah,
Are they gay?
they're huge. They have huge, big, round eyes. They're super slow moving ordinarily,
So they
and
feed on mosquitoes and flies?
yeah,
Or what?
they eat pretty much anything. I've seen one eat a small baby bird one time.
Oh wow, savage.
Okay.
Tyler, I
Yeah.
actually have some feedback regarding this, that you being discriminated. I was part of a room that Cal started up, and he has more hair than most of us, and he didn't get the clippity clippy.
Okay.
Oh, don't get him started.
We thought we were going to have a peaceful morning.
No
You
clips?
mean
Why no clips?
Hold on one sec. I have to multitask.
Evan, do you have?
I've seen it in other rooms. Yeah,
No, but do you have? That means are you able to have clip rooms, or you need someone
I don't.
else
I
to read?
don't create rooms. Yeah, I'm in other rooms.
Oh, okay, great. So you don't. Okay.
Are we ready? Just give me
Oh, we are
2.
2 minutes past the part of the hour. Top
I
of the
know.
hour.
I just have to give me 1 second. I have to do
Oh, yeah,
something here.
Okay.
Since he's busy with other things, regarding the documents that have been leaked before the weekend now in at large and have hit the papers by a broadside today, I can say that we have been diving through the documents now, and we find that some of the documents in the new leak or major leaks is quite old. There are actually both Panama and other documents in the hive of information. What we also have found is that some of the documents, somewhere during the trip to the new release, has been edited, deleted, or modified. And they have modified them in such a way that some sentences have been changed, people has been removed, names have been changed in documents. So this might be gaslighting. So they want to draw the attention away to other things in the documents, or they're trying to hide something and didn't know that the documents already were available on Darknet. Johan done speaking. Let's see if Tyler is back on surface.
Yeah, give me 1 more minute.
I can go with the Ethiopian hot news. The new government is sworn in today. There is a big inauguration ceremony. A lot of African leaders, like prime ministers and presidents, are in attendance, and they are all speaking. Buhari was speaking when I left from lunch. And yeah, the Prime Minister Abiy just got 5 years mandate. Some are calling it second term, but it's, I think, first term, because the first one he wasn't elected; he was appointed because the former Prime Minister resigned. So that's
Oh,
the
very,
news on the ground.
very similar to Japan then. Tyler, can I go on to the hottest news in Japan now?
Sure.
Great. Okay, so I'll just read this since Stefan is here in case she needs to jump off. So I'll start with this first. So Kishida takes office as Japan Prime Minister today and eyes the general election at the end of the month. So Fumio Kishida took office as Japanese Prime Minister, forming a cabinet that will seek to keep COVID-19 under control while reviving a battered economy as it looks to appeal to voters heading into an upcoming general election in less than a month. I have invited someone who is very familiar with geopolitics in this region. Stefan, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Yep.
Yep. Can you
Go
go
ahead.
on to give us some comments on that? Because I didn't really follow the politics in Japan. Thank you.
Oh, that's all right. So thanks, Cheryl, for the invitation. So I'm speaking from the position of, I guess, an observer of Japan. I live and work in Japan and teach foreign policy and domestic politics. So just to give you in a nutshell, I think the election of Prime Minister Kishida as Prime Minister of Japan really stresses continuity in foreign policy. And we see that he hasn't changed the Minister of Defense. So the Minister of Defense will be Kishinobu, as well as the Foreign Minister. Foreign Minister Motegi will continue in that position. And this is to stress continuity in promoting the so-called Indo-Pacific vision that Japan has, focusing on a rules-based region. So what does that mean? For foreign policy, it means on issues like Taiwan, that Japan will continue to promote the status quo, peace and stability across the Taiwan Straits. What does it mean for China? It means an assertive position towards China, but at the same time to continue to find opportunities to cooperate with China on infrastructure connectivity, probably climate change. But again, this relationship is going to become increasingly complicated, and the new prime minister is going to have to thread that needle. Thinking about the Korean Peninsula, Prime Minister Kishida was one of the key players that signed the 2015 Comfort Women Agreement, and he's seen as somebody that is a middle of the ground, an honest broker in terms of bilateral relations. It may push South Korean-Japan relations in a more positive direction, especially if there is a new government elected in Seoul in March 2023. At the domestic front, Kishida is going to focus on, of course, COVID-19 pandemic recovery, reducing the social economic gaps that exist in Japan, digitization, making Japan even more digitized, and trying to strengthen the economy in general by working with like-minded countries like the United States, Australia, India, and investing more in Southeast Asian countries such as Vietnam and Singapore, Malaysia, and Indonesia. So that's kind of a macro perspective, but I'm willing to answer any questions that you have.
Okay, give me 2 more seconds, please.
Thank you, Stephen. Yeah, give Tyler 2 more seconds. In the meantime, Stephen do hold rooms regularly on geopolitics in the Asia region. So if you're interested in this topic, do follow him so that whenever he open rooms, you'll be informed. Are you done with the 2 seconds, Tyler? I know you have a lot of questions.
3 more seconds.
3 more seconds. Okay. You're still
Yeah,
watching.
you can say anything else, Stephen.
Still watching the geckos.
Yeah.
So there are geckos in Japan as well, and they do have the same kind of behavior Tyler was explaining before. But back to politics, I think that the election of Kishida is important. It's important for thinking about whether Japan's going to have the revolving door of leaderships of prime ministers, or will there be stability moving on, and that really impacts the region in terms of stability, in terms of economic policy, and in terms of dealing with some of the more assertive behavior by China and North Korea in the region. So I think it's important, and I think it's something for Canadians to watch and Americans to watch, and for other countries to watch. What does that mean if Japan has a stable leader that's in power for 4 or 5 years? And if we look at the former Prime Minister Abe Shinzo, his 8 years in office brought a lot of global leadership on the international front, but also some real significant changes in the domestic economy in Japan, which put it in a better position.
Yeah, Stephen, to be honest, I live in Japan. I'm based in Tokyo for more than around 16 years now. So I think before Abe came on board, the Japanese prime minister changed almost every year, right? So what do you think about, because Suga also only survived about 1 year. So what do you think about Kishida? Do you think he'll be able to, have a longer tenure as a prime minister? Or do you think, I don't know, because nobody's going to know, right, what's going to happen to him?
So the prime minister that was just replaced, Prime Minister Suga, he didn't belong to a political faction. He didn't have his own political base. So it was unlikely that he would be a long-term prime minister. And I think that was the intent of the former prime minister, Prime Minister Abe, and the political elite, was to have 1 year kind of waiting period before they could before they could find an individual that would be a sustainable prime minister that would last 3 or 4 or 5 years or even longer. And Kishida, he has worked within the party. He used to be the chairman of what's called the Policy Research Council within the Liberal Democratic Party, and that's really critical for building and working with all the different political factions within the political party, building consensus and finding a way to get political capital from all these different stakeholders. And he's had that experience. He worked as the longest-serving prime minister under former Prime Minister Abe. He had some success. He's seen as a competent leader that can build consensus and create the conditions for sustained leadership. Importantly, he's supported by, I think, the power brokers within the LDP. That's former Prime Minister Abe and former Vice Minister Aso. And when we look at Kishida's cabinet, he's demonstrating that support through appointments of individuals that come from these different political factions. So I think he's in power for 3 or 4 years, and that's good for continuity in domestic policy and foreign policy.
Definitely. Oh, by the way, China has been sending planes or ships along the Taiwan Straits quite aggressively recently. What do you view this kind of
So yes, our
activities?
Chinese friends continue to, I think, increase the pressure on Taiwan and try to degrade their moral spirit in terms of maintaining their distinct political identity and relative independence vis-a-vis China. I think China will continue to do this, one, because it feels pressure to unify Taiwan or at least stabilize that relationship to the build-up of the 2022 Winter Olympics. And, of course, in the fall of 2022 is what's called the 20th Communist Party Congress. And that's where they make decisions for the next 5 and 10 years. And that will decide the political fate of the Secretary General Xi Jinping. So they want to make sure that there's no movement on Taiwan. And that means pressuring Taiwan so that it doesn't seek independence or it doesn't start to form stronger relationships with Japan or the United States or other partners. And this will continue. But at the same time, we have huge amounts of pressures coming from the United States and Japan and other actors on China, from the economic front to the technology front to the security front in the South China Sea, East China Sea, and other areas, which is creating a huge amount of pressure on the Communist Party of China and Secretary Xi Jinping to respond to ensure that this isn't an opportunity for Taiwan to move in a more independent direction.
Yeah, and more importantly, the U.S. has urged China to halt provocative flybys. So that's where it gets really serious.
It sure is. And if you look at the statement from the State Department that just came out this morning or last night, that it was a very strong statement that the United States is going to back its democratic friends and allies, that it's going to ensure that there's peace and stability in Taiwan, and that the United States is going to continue to strengthen that relationship. It's an interesting and nuanced kind of position because it's saying, hey, we're going to back Taiwan, but at the same time, it doesn't say they're shifting away from the one China policy. And I think that's kind of a thing that we need to continue to look forward to, because I think the United States and other countries are recalibrating that one China policy that's the basis for bilateral relations with China. That doesn't mean accepting Taiwan as an independent state, but it means not letting Beijing dictate how countries are engaging with Taiwan. And up to now, I think that China has been dictating how countries should engage with Taiwan, but I think the United States, whether it's under the former administration of the Trump administration or Biden administration, is saying, no, we're no longer going to let China dictate how we engage with Taiwan, but we're going to still keep the one China policy. It's really fascinating, and it's a needle to thread.
So going against one China policy in everything but name. So sort of undermining it without making an explicit break, which would really create an international crisis.
An explicit break, correctly, would be an international crisis. It would push Xi Jinping into a box. He would likely be unable to withstand the domestic pressure, the nationalist pressure, to ensure that Taiwan doesn't pursue a path of independence. And it would probably lead to cross-strait tensions, potentially a military clash, and this could spiral into a regional or a global crisis, as you mentioned. But I don't, again, see the United States pursuing a pro-independence policy vis-a-vis Taiwan, but I think they want to stop China from dictating how they engage with Taiwan. whether it's at the grassroots level or, for example, including Taiwan in the World Health Organization, or even including Taiwan in the Comprehensive, Progressive, and Trans-Pacific Partnership. And all of this is extremely sensitive, and it tramples upon China's core interests. But I think the lesson learned from many countries is that it's time to start charting their own route vis-a-vis Taiwan and ensure that Beijing is not dictating the conditions for bilateral relations with China, but also engaging with political entities like Taiwan.
Stephen, I have another question from the audience. Carl,
Sure.
how has the constantly changing political head affected tech regulation, and how might this latest development change things in terms of technology?
I just want to clarify that. So what we're seeing is Taiwan is a critical part of the technology supply chain in the region.
Semiconductor.
That's right. So the Taiwanese semiconductor company produces those super sensitive semiconductors that go in our jet fighters, our Apple phones, our Toyota car, our Toyota and Honda cars. So it's a really, really critical player. And what we're seeing is the United States and Japan and other countries trying to reconfigure the technological and sensitive technology supply chains such that they are secure, such that they provide a steady supply of these semiconductors. And they're doing this through a couple different routes. One is regulation, changing regulations. Two is ensuring that these technologies that are dual use, that they can be used for cars just as much as military equipment, are not accessible to the Chinese. And then three is relocating some of these production facilities to trusted or safe and like-minded countries. And this is going to continue to be the process. This is not decoupling from China completely. It's selective diversification of sensitive technologies into spheres of trusted, like-minded countries. And this will continue. It's going to be supported by the United States and Japan bilaterally. It's going to be supported by groups like the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue. And I think growingly there's going to be more buy-in from European countries as well, because these technologies are sensitive. They're kind of the avant-garde technologies that keep our economy secure and keep us modern. But again, there's concerns about how these can be used as dual use and help China leapfrog in terms of development. And it's a growing concern.
Isn't the underlying technology actually developed by a Dutch company? So the fabrication happens in Taiwan, but the underlying machines that make that fabrication possible is actually home or situated in Europe, right?
No, I think you're talking about ASML. They are just one of the many
That's right.
machines that it's just one of the many machines that is required in the semiconductor fab. Yeah.
No, I thought
It's
ASML was
an
a
important one.
partnership. I thought ASML was a partnership of over 200 companies that make the technology possible.
No. They are one of the companies. Yeah, one of the important ones. Yeah.
I'm on this same. I'm in the same boat as Cheryl on this. It's one of the companies that are involved in the semiconductor manufacturing process, and an important one. But again, I think that these are seen as because ultimately these are located in Taiwan. They're located in part of the world that could be disrupted very, very quickly in some kind of cross-strait crisis, and that Japan and others are actively thinking about how they can ensure that this sensitive technology is secured. Because I mean, if there is a breakdown in supply chains, and we're already feeling that with the bottleneck in semiconductors coming into our economies, that if there's a critical breakdown, that this could fundamentally create an economic shock to the region and to the world. And there is growing momentum. And again, if you look at Prime Minister Kishida, they've created a Ministry of Economic Security, which is going to focus on this because it's such an important issue for the Japanese economy.
So if I can ask a silly question, what's another company if it's not TSMC and ASML? What's a third player that I could look up?
There is Applied Materials. There's Tokyo Electron. TL I think. Yeah, Tokyo Electron. I forgot the name exactly. But there's a few that's very important in the whole process, especially with those higher technology ones.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
there's just limited number of players that are
Oh,
in the
KLA Tenko is another one too.
yeah, and the limited number of players means that this kind of technology really does create an opportunity for global disruption if there's a crisis that emerges, and this is why we see countries using ministries of economic security to try and create a stable supply for like-minded countries.
How much of a material concern is it to the leaders in Taiwan and Japan and elsewhere uh, that the U.S. and the EU continue to have uh, different forms of risks in terms of collaboration and cooperation? Is that part of the zeitgeist of their calculus now?
Do you mean with different forms of cooperation with China or different forms of cooperation with Taiwan?
No, no, no. Between the U.S. and the EU, the
Yeah.
lack of consultation with the withdrawal from Afghanistan, the deal that undermined the French submarine deal with Australia, and then everything that happened with, undermining NATO in the last administration. How much is the lack of a united alliance or the deterioration in a united alliance affecting the calculus?
Okay, so I think on the Afghan issue, the Europeans and other countries have known the United States were going to leave for at least since the Trump administration made the commitment. The Biden administration telegraphed this for months ahead. I think that the so-called lack of consultation really is not reflected in the pronouncements for at least a year. I think the problem was, and I don't think there was any perfect way to get out of Afghanistan without having the optics as they were. But I think that the broader strategy of using those resources, diverting them back to the real challenge, I think, that the United States identifies, that's China, is something that, in terms of strategy, in terms of being on the same page of the book, the Europeans and the United States have a similar view. In terms of the AUKUS agreement, I think it's, how much of the French are upset about this. I think that there's a certain level of crocodile tears when we're thinking about this. If you go back 5 or 6 years, the French outcompeted the Japanese and the Germans with their own sub deal with the Australians. And it wasn't until the very last minute that the Australians switched from the Japanese deal to the Australian deal. And if you look into the details, it wasn't the nicest way that they outcompeted the Germans and the Japanese. I mean, the Australians enjoyed a lot of champagne and trips to Paris, but my point is that the defense industry is cutthroat, and that I don't think the French they may not have expected it, but in terms of undermining the French and U.S. relationship, I just don't think this is the case. National interests are national interests. The French have deep-seated interests in the Pacific Islands. They have nationals there, and that will continue to be the case. And they'll need Australia, New Zealand, Japan, the United States to help secure those interests. So when we look at the broad relations, the regional interests of the EU and the United States in the region they haven't fundamentally changed. The question is will the Biden administration continue to focus on an alliance first, a like-minded country first approach? And I think importantly for the Europeans, they're watching, will Trump come back into power, or will a Trump-like figure come back into power? Will the Republicans gain seats in the upcoming 2022 elections? Will Biden be able to be reelected? And I think the Europeans are really concerned about this. Canadians are concerned about this. Japanese are concerned about this because under the Trump administration, as you mentioned, Mr. Trump fundamentally created huge distrust and apprehension in the United States because of his treatment of NATO, because of his treatment of alliance partners, and because of his really, his ad hoc, incoherent foreign policies on North Korea and other countries. And I think that the concern is less about the United States if there's continuity in the Biden administration beyond this next 3 years, and there's more concern about what's happening in the domestic politics in the United States.
Thank you, Stefan.
Yeah,
Tyler,
my
you
pleasure.
back?
Yep.
Welcome back.
Thanks. What do you think is the big issue in Japan at the moment politically? I guess maybe that's relevant to the election. And is there something interesting happening in Japan in terms of a big domestic issue that the outside world isn't privy to?
So I think like every economy, there's uncertainty about COVID-19 and what's going to happen over the next 6 months, year, 2 years in terms of the economy opening up. How will the COVID-19 health pandemic evolve into other problems? And I think what Japan is concerned about and other countries are concerned about is growing social economic inequality associated with the pandemic, the long-term impact on civil society, on trust, on healthcare institutions, and how this will affect international businesses. So right now, it's really difficult to come back into Japan unless you have a business visa or a permanent residency. This creates huge challenges in terms of Japanese businesses going abroad, but also businesses coming into Japan and doing businesses. So I think economic recovery, dealing with social economic inequality, and what is the post-COVID-19 pandemic landscape going to be like? And I think this is the priority for the government. This is what the priority of the citizens are. And, it's not all this other stuff that you read in the newspapers like Yasukuni Shrine or comfort women or constitutional change or whether the emperor can be a female or a male. It's all about those, meat and potato issues, or in the case of Japan, sushi and okonomiyaki issues. And I think you get that if you get Japanese
Yeah.
food. But my point is that
Zen Zen.
Tyler loves Japan, by the way. He used to live in Japan.
Oh, great. So you get it then.
Yeah.
But, it's all about what is the landscape moving forward. And I think that's really much the same in most countries, is that the pandemic has deeply impacted us in ways that are not just economic, not just health, but I think they've undermined a lot of trust in our societies, how we think about health, how we think about our governments. And that is the big issue that I think the Japanese government needs to fix, and many other governments need to think about.
Stefan, I think Japan has been quite strict regarding the travel ban and closing the border. Do you think do you see them opening up soon? And also, we just read an article that Japan is, of course, shortage of foreign, like the shortage of talents, especially the technology aspect. They are looking for AI people, right? So do you think that they will look at these people from inside, or they will allow, like, try to relax their immigration policy to allow more people to come in?
So what we're going to see is there's an election. The prime minister has been selected, and he's called an election for the end of the month on October 31st. And I don't think there'll be any change in the movement or accessibility to Japan until that election is decided, depending on the mandate that I'm confident Prime Minister Kishida will be elected as Prime Minister, and the LDP will be continue in power. The question is, what is the mandate? Will they strengthen their position, or how much? What would be the relative weakening of positions? Now, if there's a relatively weakening of positions, then I think there's going to be an extended period where Japan continues to be closed. If they keep the current number or increase their position, then I think that the Kishida government Kishida administration will be better placed to take a more aggressive or proactive approach to opening up Japan. Where will they open up? Low-skilled service sector. They need people. They need people making those rice balls, onigiri. They need people working in the service sector at the McDonald's and the 7-Elevens and the Family Marts. And they need workers in the automobile sector. But they also need those highly skilled individuals, whether it's those specialists in AI or IT or augmented intelligence or anything with regards to the digital economy. So I think that Japan will have a selective opening up of the economy for migrants, but it will all depend on the direction of the COVID pandemic moving forward. And if you watch Australia and you watch Singapore and other countries that have 80% or have pretty good vaccination levels, they still have a corona problem. And that as long as we don't find ways to coexist with the corona problem, that I don't think we're going to see the same movement of people in and out of countries, including Japan, as we did pre-pandemic.
Is there? We got to get into the headlines here, but every time I these days don't get over as much as I'd like, but I guess it was 2 years ago. I was there right before COVID, and actually I was planning to go during. Well, yeah, I had a plan to go during COVID. The is there a social trend that's developing that you've seen? And I ask in the context that, for example, Japan was one of the first where young ladies were not getting married and dating kind of was stopping, and that these kinds of social evolution trends tend to start there very early and then spread beyond there. I realize it might not be your wheelhouse, but the kind of sociological human like social trends that if you get what I'm saying.
I do. It's a great question, Tyler. So for all of the people on the call, there used to be a trend called hikikomori, or disappearing.
Yeah, sonotori. No?
Yeah, sonotori. Those people that are socially withdrawn.
Exactly
And
right.
There was a growing trend because of the lack of employment. I think the people being too accommodative of this kind of behavior. And I think in some ways the corona crisis, the COVID-19 pandemic has exasperated this already inward-looking side of young men, in that they were stuck in their houses, they couldn't go out and meet girls, they couldn't do what normal young people do. And I think that this will impact marriage rates and, again, population growth in Japan. And this will impact consumption, it will impact economy. And this goes back to, again, I think Prime Minister Kishida's view that social economic inequality, economic opportunity, stable, well-paying jobs are critical to Japan's economic prosperity, but it's economic sustainability, right? If people aren't getting married, they're not having kids, society becomes less healthy. And what I mean by that, if you look at the statistics, people that are married, they live longer, they make more money, they have better education. All of these aggregate factors contribute to stronger, more sustainable economies. And I'm not making any comments. I think whether it's LGBT issues, people are under the LGBT category have children or adopt children, it's the same. It's those intact families that make economies sustainable. And this is a big concern, Tyler, that if we have more socially withdrawn people,
right,
and it's exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic, what does this mean for sustainability
right.
and
And
economic
then
growth in Japan?
you no doubt you're familiar with this week or the past week or two, China's kind of seeming to want to preemptively nip that potential phenomena in the bud by with this video game banning where they don't want people to get isolated and withdrawn. And they seem to be also aware now, more focused on their declining birth rate and trying to do everything to address it. And I imagine if that trend were to become much more of a recognizable, termified phenomena in China, they would do whatever they need to do to reverse it. Where Japan just sort of recognizes it as a kind of Japanese characteristic, but like as if like oh yeah, this is just how we are.
So Tyler, this is a great point. And if you look at trends in China over the past year and a half, 3 years ago they changed the one China policy to two kid policy. They've changed it to allow for 3 kids, but people don't want the kids because it's so expensive.
Right.
And the government now has been proactive in trying to make Chinese society less competitive. So that's banning private schools and taking away the right for kids to play video games. But they're also making it increasingly difficult for LGBT people to be represented
Right.
in Chinese society because they want to focus on traditional families,
Right.
traditional values to create sustainable
Yeah.
growth,
Right.
and to think about how children take care of their parents because they're going to come to a population crunch in the next 5 or 10 years. And it's called the 4-to-1 problem:
Right.
4 grandparents for 2 children for 1 child, and this is coming. And the Chinese government is saying, "Yeah, traditional families is one way that they can deal with this." And you're correct. The Japanese don't think like this. They can't think like this. It's a liberal democratic society, and they don't have the tools to manage their society in the same way as the Chinese would.
But
But
also,
what about?
well, I think
Sorry, go ahead, John.
the Japanese might be a little fortunate in that they acquired generational wealth a little earlier than China did, so there isn't quite the incredibly urgent impetus to like make sure that there's breadwinners in the younger generation. Like the Japanese who are aging generally are financially not like where the aging Chinese are in terms of needing their children to support them.
And that's another great comparison. And I think if you do the groundwork and a more granular look at where Japan was in the 1980s, which I think is the comparable point towards where China is today,
Yeah, yeah. The
the
boom, yeah.
broad economic growth and development of human capital, of that software, was extremely high in the 1980s. Where in the Chinese context, I think that there's pockets of really high human capital development, but broadly over a country of 1.4 billion people, the average GDP or GDP per person is maybe 10,000 or 9,000 US dollars, where Japan in the 1980s was something like 40,000 or 45,000. So it's not comparable,
Right.
and this creates huge challenges for China moving forward as that demographic crunch comes, because Japan got rich before all this happened,
Right.
where China has not gotten broadly rich
Right.
before the demographic crunch is starting to accelerate.
Yeah.
But if I may pose a counterpoint, what about the women's perspective that women, if they want to have children, they also want to spend time with their children, fathers as well, right? And if we live in an economy that is so competitive, and if we have something like the Pandora Papers, where a third of the world's wealth is locked up in bank vaults that are inaccessible to tax revenues, I don't see that actually changing the mindset of anyone. I feel like people will not want to have children because of the pressures of, hey, I work all day, I slave away, and I barely see my children. I barely afford to give them an opportunity, the same kind of opportunity that I had.
So, EO, for full transparency, all my money is in being. I pay a lot of taxes, but to your point, I completely agree, and this is why I think South Korea, Japan, China, growingly Hong Kong and Singapore all have these same problems with one-child families or no-child families. Is that the pressure to work long hours, there's commuting times in these societies, the cost of putting children through these competitive education systems really has struck home for many. And I think they've said, well, no longer do we want to keep running on the hamster wheel and not going anywhere, that we're going to make different choices. And that means not creating families or having smaller families. And this is such a huge weight on the economies moving forward. Japan in 2050 will probably be 25 million people smaller. South Korea will probably be a third smaller. China its population will start shrinking, and it'll be increasingly dominated by an elderly population. So how do they work with this? How do they create economic sustainability? Is such an open question, right? because these societies are not exactly known for being welcoming to immigrants, and integrating people into their societies and recognizing diversity. So how are they going to manage these crises, as you correctly mentioned, and the inability of the economic systems to offer a work-life balance that allows for family? And none of these societies have been able to find the magic bullet to deal with this.
I'm one thing I would look for, and we saw the first headline of it, and it said South Koreans going out into the countryside for long weekends or whatnot. I suspect, and I think it'll happen in Japan first, where these kind of social trends tend to occur there, kind of before elsewhere, where there was for the past, many years, decades even, people dove into the cities. They moved away from the farms and moved into the cities, and very most recently, maybe in China, in a major, major way. And then, and as you say, like in Hong Kong, it's just unaffordable the size of the apartment you have. You can't have a kid in those tiny apartments in Hong Kong generally, and Tokyo as well. The apartments are notoriously quite small. And I think what's going to happen is there will, maybe as a result of COVID to some degree, people will start saying, you know what, fuck it. I'm going to move back out into the countryside, get a piece of land, grow my own food, have a more traditional, and by traditional, I mean 50 to 100 years ago, lifestyle, which is kind of a whole change of values of this, past modernization, inner city jumping thing. And I think might even be led by the folks who actually did well in the inner cities in the past 20 years. And I'm kind of tooting my own horn here. I mean, this is more or less exactly what I did, which was, worked in the city, got my bag, and then ran out the door and built. Now I'm, out here in doing the farm thing and loving it. And I think this is going to become a thing. And I think that Japan will be one of the first to potentially do this, because I've already seen the folks that are my age in Japan are already thinking, I don't know, the whole salaryman thing. I don't know, as long as I can get enough and I can have, and by the way, just the recognition of growing one's own food and the healthiness of that, and knowing that it's not been used with pesticides, and knowing that it's so fresh, and so there's a real recognition of the value of that now that we didn't have 10, 20 years ago. And so our values are changing a little bit, and the ability to have a family and be with them through the day, and there's more of a recognition of that now as well, and it's so kind of along those lines.
So I think
Tyler.
that's a great point, and I think when we look at, and I'm just going to speak about Japan and Korea,
Yeah,
but the best universities, the enrollment isn't decreasing in these best universities, whether it's Tokyo University or Seoul University or Korea
yeah,
University or Waseda University. That means that there's a segment of the populations that continue to believe in the social economic model, that understand the connection between the first tier institutions and being employed by first tier businesses, those blue chip companies, or entering the halls of power in those societies. I don't see those drivers changing.
yeah,
I see them continue to be really important. At the top tier,
yeah,
where we're seeing, I think the situation you've described is people have kind of given up on that. They feel that they can't compete in the system, so they want to have a different life, a work-life balance. And as you mentioned, they go to the countryside and they try to find some sustainable ways to, to have a family and to, as you said, grow organic food, maybe wear organic clothes, and just escape the rat race
mm-hmm.
of what's in these societies. But I don't think it's a critical mass yet, and I
Right,
don't think
yeah. I don't
it
think
will
it's yeah.
be.
I think it's just starting.
Yeah, it's starting, but it won't transform society because these are people that will be in a marginal economic position,
Yeah,
and it's sad, but I think it's true. In the case of these very hierarchical societies that prioritize, you know, joining the elite through joining the elite institutions.
Yeah, but I think the things like Starlink could help with this. The now being able to have fast internet way out in the middle of nowhere. I'm trying to think of other complement. Well, the fact that our phones we're becoming more digitized, so we are able to kind of be more remote and still be part of society. As I'm calling you from a very remote island in Thailand, so it's like the where it's going to enable to think more creatively about their opportunities
I
to.
agree with you completely. And I think the pandemic has exposed those people that were able to thrive in the pandemic because they could use technology and they could, you could work from Thailand or, this week I'm in Canada, but last week I was in Tokyo, and I'm using all these technologies to work, right? But in the Japanese context, I assume this is in many places, they had many problems just, for example, even having online education or, being in a small apartment and the dad's home, the mom's home, the kids are trying to do online education at the top of the pandemic. The ability for all people to negotiate this kind of new, wireless and Wi-Fi work world is not equal. And I think that's an area that I think Cheryl mentioned in her question, what is the priorities for the government, is to create more digital equality so that we can all, work from home more, have more opportunities for work-life balance. And this is going to take a lot of investment in infrastructure, literacy and how to use these technologies, and more flexibility by educational institutions as well as businesses to allow for that.
Yep. Okay. Thank you for sharing. Welcome. And by the way, welcome to our Tech News Around the World here. We're going to jump into the headlines, the biggest, most popular headlines in tech, as we do every day, twice a day. And the biggest headline at this very moment is the 60 Minutes interview that happened yesterday, Sunday evening, as they always do in America each week. And this week was a very special one that got a lot of people excited because it was the special guest interview was the Wall Street Journal's Facebook whistleblower, and who essentially says that Facebook is misleading the public on progress against hate speech, misinformation, and more. That's the headline from CNBC News or CBS News, and CBS is the host of is the network that hosts the 60 Minutes show. The New York Times headline says whistleblower says Facebook chooses profits over safety, and the special guest interviewer, whose name is Frances Haugen, on her own website says Frances Haugen is an advocate for public oversight of social media. And she tells the story of how she had worked at Google and Pinterest, and then decided to join Facebook because they were having a team all about combating misinformation on Facebook. And she had a close friend who had become a conspiracy theorist due to what she believes too much rabbit holing on Facebook. And so she thought she could help address an important problem that she had experienced firsthand, which was a friend who joined the Tinfoil Hat Club, and thought that was perhaps a noble use of her time. So she went there. She was the product manager for this team on misinformation. And then Facebook, after, she had spent a year on that, said, well, thank you very much for that. We're going to wind that down. And they kind of shut that down. And then she went on to work on the counterterrorism team. And then she realized Facebook wasn't actually interested in fixing the problem that it was her job to kind of help point out. And she thought, oh boy, you tricked me under false pretenses, here to join this team and to help address this problem that I think is a real problem. And I've shown you that it is a real problem and you're not taking it seriously. You're putting profits before people. And that's not what I signed up for. And so she said she stayed an extra month after she realized she didn't want to stay anymore, specifically to collect all of the files that she's now leaking. And now she's done her first interview. She will tomorrow do a Senate hearing. So that's the hot story within the tech world at the moment.
Roadshow tour right here. 60 minutes one day, Senate hearing the next. I mean, this is intense.
Well, I'm curious to know how dramatic this whole episode can turn into, and if she can get herself a book deal or a movie deal. And she says one really interesting detail that she put into the press was that she knew Facebook was watching her in her final month while she's accessing all of these documents. And so her very last day, she typed into the search bar of her search history because she knew eventually she's going to be found out and that they're going to look at her search history. So her last search query on her last day was, I love Facebook. I don't hate Facebook. I want to fix it. And so she's got an incredible amount of, rather American kind of grandiose level of optimism and her abilities to singularly fix Facebook as one of 100,000 person team. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of people that Google hired for like, hey, AI ethics, go ahead and fix all that for us, right? And it's like, whoops, I guess that the door was a little harder than they thought. And it's like,
Well, Tyler, this is Robert. I'm actually looking at this a different way
Okay.
also. As a employer, the level of employee tracking and screening them in and while they're there is just going to go up higher. And also more forms to
Yeah.
sign that you can sue them later as they take stuff.
Yeah, that's even been you're correct. We can say you're correct because already thus far, even though the whistleblowing or file leaking started last week or now 2 weeks ago, they've now apparently reportedly they're not really allowing people to search for documents that aren't particularly directly relevant to them, where previously she was able to find documents throughout the entire organization that were relevant to meetings she wasn't directly part of those meetings. And so now they're applying more of a silo type approach to all of the data so that people can't do these searches and whatnot.
To me is also, Tyler, I think companies also sometimes shouldn't create department or hire people just to whitewash or just for PR purposes. That maybe, if they are genuinely trying to solve some problems, that maybe this kind of huge gap between the expectation of the employee and what the company actually is doing wouldn't be this big. So the whitewashing sometimes happens just to make profit or PR purposes. They would say, oh, we are creating this, we're doing this, but internally they are not actually doing that.
Yeah, that's been one of the points made against the Google ethical AI team, which was, there was so much talk about ethical AI. Google realized, oh shit, okay, we got to create a team just so we can say we got an ethical AI team. And that's
they were paying for the external groups. So, I mean, like, it's just a matter of which groups internally versus externally are coordinating.
But
And by the way, she's got a problem too from a disgruntled employee perspective. She was working for the group that was disbanded. That kind of reeks of a disgruntled employee situation to me.
Yeah, it's a good thing
Yeah,
that
I
Facebook
agree.
keeps their nose clean and doesn't have any issues on this.
Well, especially as the leader of the team, that can hurt one's ego for sure. Especially like she went in, everyone goes into a scenario like that thinking I'm going to make a change in the world, and then when you feel like you're doing the right thing, and the company, I can understand why she would be.
Okay, this wouldn't be as much an issue. Facebook recruits specifically for this. The whole tech sector does with things. One thing they say, look, this isn't going to be glamorous. Show up and just do your job. We're going to pay you a paycheck and you can go home. That's one thing. But no, they recruit essentially on the change the world for the better. We're doing a mission. We're doing all those things, and then they act shocked and surprised when people actually believe the sucker, like the suckers they are, essentially believe the sales pitch and the HR thing, and they actually act on it because it is so counterintuitive for people that are hiring on these false narratives that people actually follow through and believe the things that they're saying. So, sometimes people actually act on some stuff that they basically hear.
It's like that TechCrunch meme. SOMO low. We're social, mobile, local. We're going to change the world, change the world, change the world. And then it turns out that all you're doing is pushing code.
So, Michael,
It,
good to see you back here on stage. I'm curious if you have been following this Facebook drama. And the New York Times has an article right now that says, as the Wall Street Journal's Facebook files suggest, Facebook seems to be in a slow, steady decline, evidenced by frenetic pivots, executive paranoia, and talent attrition. And so the Wall Street Journal,
How much revenue do they get last quarter that they increase?
well, it's this is one aspect where the tech journalists can't really be totally transparent that they have an agenda. So
Also, how much money has their publication received from Facebook? How much of the career of that journalist has basically been built around getting Facebook likes? It's the meta part that I get really irritated around
yeah,
about this
but
stuff.
when the New York Times headline says the Wall Street Journal's Facebook files suggest that Facebook seems to, I mean, you're basically retweeting your friend. This is the professional journalism version of retweeting your friend, and because you want to make sure everybody sees this article. Let me
Or
assure
sharing
you.
about it on Facebook, right?
Yeah, but let me assure you, the New York Times does not normally retweet the Wall Street Journal's articles. They're normally competitors. But on this issue, and really, this is one of the very, very unique issues where the New York Times is willing to go ahead and just promote Wall Street Journal's work, kind of above their
It's funny
own.
nobody's been mentioning that actually.
Well, they have this is one area, one very unique area where they have a very perfectly aligned agenda to take down Facebook. And so
Or at least lower the rates essentially that they're going to basically be requiring to upload of videos with stuff, or essentially get more ad revenue for the things that they basically negotiate in their later deal content they have later on. They're raising the price they're going to be charging them later for the advertising stuff.
Facebook seems to be in a slow, steady decline, as evidenced by frantic pivots, executive paranoia, and talent attrition. This is about as high school, drama kind of. Sally sleeping with the whole football team. Have you heard?
Have we heard anything about the genocide stuff, about Facebook's role in that, or the actual death count stuff?
Yeah.
Like, that's actual news. This is pathetic.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it make more sense that the younger generation just isn't signing up for it, and that's why there's a slow decline?
No, but Annette, yes, but that's what a logical, sane, unbiased person would do, and that's a brilliant approach. Is hey,
I think that Facebook actually got too big for its own good, and they just don't know how to move forward as a relevant kind of staple. I think the same thing happened with brick and mortar stores when Napster came. Like, it's like when you're a giant, you don't really know how to move when kind of this rascally little guy, relatively comparatively, comes into play and starts making waves. You don't really know how to move because in your head you're a giant, you're a staple, and you're never going away. I mean, MySpace said that. All the brick and mortar record stores said that. And you continue to see that even today. There's a lot of brick and mortar stores who still refuse to put any kind of ad spin on digital or even have a digital storefront, and that's going to be the big killer of their business. And I think with Facebook, their strategy has always been buy whatever's working and then bury it and then kind of make their own version of it. And the only times that they didn't do that, they were successful, which was what? Instagram and I think what was the other one?
WhatsApp.
WhatsApp. And
Yeah.
yeah. And I think that Facebook just it's weird to say this because I don't want to say it, but I kind of feel like they're going to go the way of MySpace if they don't learn how to adapt properly, and if they don't stop looking at themselves as like just this giant corporation and start looking at themselves, get back to a kind of grassroots kind of deal. Like, it sounds weird to say that, but what it started out as was much better than what it is today. All this kind of all-encompassing thing, there's a way to do it properly. We see that with what, like, WeChat and things like that. There's a way to do it properly, but Facebook ain't doing it.
So check this out.
Well, I think
1 second, Maurice. I just tweeted to the Tech News Twitter account this New York Times article that you really kind of got to see to believe. This is unprecedented. When you open the article, it will take you to a New York Times page, and nearly the entire page, the entire screen of your device will show the Facebook logo broken like broken glass, and then it says in text, Facebook is weaker than we knew. That's the headline. The headline is Facebook is weaker than we knew. A trove of leaked documents published by the Wall Street Journal hints at a company whose best days are behind it. Now, if this isn't, trying to, this is to me reeks of an agenda.
I
I agree.
think with the issue with the agenda is problematic because we can attribute it to the whistleblower, this Horton, but we can attribute it to the New York Times, but we can also attribute it to Facebook. So why don't we just stipulate
Yeah,
that
but I want to be
everyone
clear.
has an agenda. Everyone has an agenda. And
Sure.
so the question is,
Yeah.
how do we piece
Everyone
out the
no, but
facts?
the New York Times would say they don't. The New York Times says no. We're news. We are the news. We're not Fox News. We're not entertainment. We're not infotainment. We're we're the record. We're the news. We're unbiased. We don't have an
That's the
agenda.
problem.
That's the
That's the
problem.
problem. It's
I agree
fine
with
having an
you. I
agenda,
agree
but
with you.
you have to be
Everyone
able
has an
to admit.
agenda. Sorry to cut you off, Michael, but the point is that they wouldn't admit that they have the agenda. So sorry.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No,
First
I
of
agree
all,
with you, Tyler.
you have to figure out who wrote the article. It might be an analysis
Kevin
piece,
Roos.
as opposed, which I believe he always takes sort of a more opinionated position, and it's not the straight news of reporting just what happened. So what you have to do when you read the New York Times is read a whole bunch of different perspectives on the New York Times, which they have. But the other thing you have to do is read every other publication against the New York Times to see how it all balances out. I mean, the people who say that it's no longer that journalism is no longer objective and I don't know when this golden age of objectivity lived, but I studied journalism a lot and it never existed. What you have to do, it's your responsibility as an educated citizen to read everything. You read Wired, you read the information, you read the Wall Street Journal, you read everything, and then you make a decision. And hopefully that's what we can do in this room, which is why we bring different
Okay.
perspectives and different publications.
Yeah.
So I would recommend we take off the table attributing motives. I mean, remember, she last night said that Zuckerberg wasn't evil, that he's a capitalist. He wants to make as much money as he wants. She didn't say this, but in the fact, that's what people get so shocked about. I'm not surprised. He wants to make as much money as he can, which is what he's supposed to do under our system in a sense. And what she's saying is, if you undermine our society to a certain degree, like I saw my friend, and then the impact on what was interesting about last night's interview was the focus not on Instagram and kids, but on the stabilizing nature within the U.S. and throughout the world. Remember, she said that there are countries that are much smaller, that it's not cost effective for Facebook to translate and monitor hate speech. And so those countries are even in more danger. And so that's really the focus. Now, the long-term impact for us and people interested in technology, if we get an authoritarian government, do you really want them to start dictating like China does? So that's what it doesn't mean you're anti-tech. it may mean that you're pro-tech and you want more flourishing of technology and ideas, and you don't want to go the route where the government starts dictating things.
Okay, so check this out. On this issue of the New York Times' objectivity and agenda fan flaming, check this out. Was it yesterday? October 1st. So over the weekend, Brian Armstrong, the CEO of Coinbase, jumps on Twitter to do a tweet thread that really skewers this New York Times and pops their whole fantasy bubble that they're an objective, without any agendas. He basically proves them wrong. Literally has the receipts, proves that they have an agenda. It was really interesting. 1 year ago, he had this new policy about no political polarizing discussions at work here at Coinbase. We're focused. We have a mission. Our mission is to, bring decentralized finance to the world, which we think is going to create more positive impact on the planet than anything else. So that's nice if you like Black Lives Matter, and that's great if you want to save the dolphins and all that. But we're not going to talk about those issues at work, and we're certainly not going to turn them into arguments because we have our own mission that we're focused on. And if you want to join our mission, then you're in the right building. If this isn't your primary mission, go find another place to work. Life's too short. Go work for Black Lives Matter. Go work for Save the Dolphins. We have our own mission here. End of sentence. If you want to go somewhere else, here's a ridiculously fair settlement package. It's been nice. Take care. Then the New York Times wrote a hit piece on them and projected that this is going to lead to a lack of diversification a lack of diversity at Coinbase. So he jumps on 1 year later, the 1 year anniversary, to say it's been about 1 year. I'm going to tweet it right now. You can read it for yourself as I read it. His tweet thread says, "It's been 1 year since my mission-focused blog post. It wasn't easy to go through at the time, but looking back, it turned out to be one of the most positive changes I've made at Coinbase, and I'd recommend it to others. We've have a much more aligned company now where we can focus on getting work done towards our mission. And it has allowed us to hire some of the best talent from organizations where employees are fed up with politics, infighting, and distraction. One of the biggest concerns around our stance was that it would impact our diversity numbers. Since my post a year ago, we've grown our headcount about 110%, while our diversity numbers have remained the same or improved in some metrics. Several people told me this would never happen when I circulated the original draft initially or internally. It turned out that there were people from every background who want to work at a mission-focused company. What was amazing was the contrast between the news following my post and the reaction from employees and people who spoke to me in private. While the media reports were mostly negative, they were all negative. They were hit pieces, actually. And it even spawned some retaliatory and intellectually dishonest hit pieces, like the New York Times. That was a very intellectually dishonest hit piece where they intentionally sought out former Black employees of Coinbase to ask, is this guy a racist? And is that why he's firing you? That was the New York Times piece. So where he said, that's where he's being rather polite in his point here. While the media reports were mostly negative and even spawned some retaliatory and intellectually dishonest hit pieces, the reaction both from employees and people I spoke to in private was overwhelmingly positive. In fact, I would say it was probably the most positive reaction I've gotten from any change I've made in the history of the company, which is saying something. How could something be so negative in the press, but turn out to be so incredibly positive with every stakeholder? The only sense I can make of it is that there is a huge mismatch between people's stated and revealed preferences right now, and we're operating in an environment of virtue signaling and fear of speaking up, etc., etc. Essentially calling out the New York Times. You were wrong. You tried to hit piece me, and you were wrong. The facts, 1 year later, and I've been watching, and I've been collecting the receipts, and here we are 1 year later, and I'm spreading my receipts on the table, and you were fucking wrong. And I'm calling your ass out.
I appreciate that he did that too. It was necessary.
Well, it's unique. I don't know that I've seen it done before, but his point is,
Yeah, I've never seen it done.
there's agenda-driven journalism at publications whose names are synonymous with, just given the facts. And I'll be, in all fairness, it wasn't the New York Times who I don't think they went into this voluntarily. I think they went into this whole new era of this new type of news, this, the era of fake news. I think they went into it very begrudgingly, but I don't think they felt they didn't have much of a choice to stay relevant in an age where
Right.
Fox News was winning. And that must have been insanely frustrating to watch fake news win when you're doing real news, as the New York Times was for a large part of its history. But to stay competitive in this modern era of fake news, they felt like they had to participate to some degree, not to the extent that some have.
I wish there was a way to get back to true journalism too. Like, quite frankly, I I really tend to not pay attention to journalism because it feels so fucking. It's not real journalism. Like, it's there's nothing filling about it. There's no meat and potatoes. It's all candy, and it's nonsensical at this point.
I'll say,
Well,
yeah.
oh, sorry.
No. I was just going to point out that Nikkei Japan, at least the articles we see, seem to be pretty much straight down the middle. The DW from Berlin still seems rather down the middle. It's just we have to look more internationally than before. For that's sort of my little short point. Go. Sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, no problem. So it's kind of cyclical, right? Remember, we had this. Well, not anybody alive right now, but this was the Upton Sinclair talking about yellow journalism and things like that, like muckrakers and things like that. So this has been cyclical since Gutenberg, where we have these people who are all trying to sell papers. They're competitive. And then in order to become a bit more competitive, they start getting into more florid journalism, and it goes too far, and then they crack down. This most recent foray is just because of Reagan uh, removed the, what is it called, fair
It was a fairness doctrine, but he didn't remove it. I just went through this last night. Everyone wants to blame him. It was done by the FCC. It was done unanimously, including all the Democrats. But yes, under his administration, technically, but it
Right,
was
and he puts in the head of the FCC, and he was the one who actually wanted that agenda. And what happened is you used to have actually fair and balanced reporting. You used to have like people just report, and then they had to give equal air to the opposing side, but
Right.
not if the. But at some point, if the opposing side, though, if the opposing side had no credibility, they could actually say that, but now they don't. Like, so now what they're doing is this is what happened to get Trump elected, is that giving airtime to an opposing side and trying uh, to balance the two, Hillary with the emails, but Trump with all the the sexual harassment and the stealing and the tax evasion and whatever. But they try to equate them to make it look as though it's fair and balanced. That is what gives a skewed view of the world more than anything else. Like, it's trying to equate wrongs and rights, right? Trying to equate these two doesn't work. So, and that's what makes people think like, well, it's just as bad. It's not just as bad. And assuming that people will be able to analyze it critically and be able to tell that one is significantly more egregious than the other, whichever side it is, right, is wrong. People do not think critically right now.
Alexandra, what do you think about the fundamental allegation of the whistleblower is that the engagement algorithm on Facebook distorts information in the way that it does? I mean, that was the really assertion that she made, is that it's fundamental to Facebook's business that that divisiveness occurs on the platform, and that certain behaviors are rewarded to drive
I,
engagement. Wasn't that her really damning or most damning allegation?
yeah, I
How do
mean,
you change that?
I think that was actually that I found it. Well, I found it actually not, unfortunately, shocking. It drives engagement, right? And this is what everybody is looking for. This is why talking heads who had to get ratings for shows all moved from like the McLaughlin group to the Tucker Carlson people, because they needed to pull people and ratings. So when Facebook decided to get to use their MAU, the monthly active users, as their metric, that's where things went wrong, right? because it's not really about the quality of the engagement or even the spend of any of those people, right? If you're just looking for engagement, period, and you're trying to maximize engagement of whatever type, the more extreme the better,
Could
because
I,
those are the people who will stay engaged.
yeah, Alexandra, could I give a, agree with everything you said, but a different, agree on the problem, suggests a different solution. So the problem we have is that, bad news travels faster than good news. That's been throughout the entirety of civilization. Conflict gets more eyeballs. That's been throughout the entirety of civilization. Social media has amplified that natural human tendency. So if these competitors in the social media space are competing for shareholder value and profit, and one of the ways to compete is around the natural amplification of a natural human behavior, the only way out of that is not to take down individual companies, but to have a legitimate regulatory framework that says, okay, you all can compete, but this is one thing you can't compete on. You cannot any longer compete on amplifying conflict as a way to get eyeballs on screens and uh, uh, mean daily usage. Take that out, compete on the good stuff. But we're going to take this off your plate so you don't have to compete on that. You don't need to compete on that. And maybe it'll drop the total value of the total market, but it would provide a more level playing field by taking that amplification of conflict off the table as a competitive tool.
But wouldn't that just lead to people rewording stuff so that it doesn't look like a conflict? Like, we agree in principle, but 57 other things that they don't agree with. I mean, I think that might just encourage them that might encourage form over function changes. I think it's the fundamental metric that's the problem. When you're looking at strictly engagement and you're not looking at anything else, like, those people don't have to buy anything. All they are numbers to show ads to. That
Mm.
whole model is problematic.
The
Yeah, I agree.
fundamental, I think I agree with that, but I will say this though. I agree with it if everyone was equally intellectual. I think that the surface change, as silly as this sounds, the surface change or how you say something in this case actually will make an impact for the average person. If my speech is intensified to get a group of easily controllable people riled up and hating another group of people, if there are laws set in place that force me to have to change my tone and change the way I say said thing, it's far less likely to get that group riled up, let alone parts of that group won't even understand what it is that I'm saying at that point. So I actually don't think it's a waste of time to force a different etiquette and language to be used. I mean, etiquette and language is actually, it's a big part of it. It really is.
Hey, I just want to make a point on this FCC thing because we were going through it last night. So yes, it happened in 1987, but the final rule didn't actually change, where they eliminated the power of the FCC until 2011. So you had two Democratic administrations that they wanted to put it back. There were court cases involved with this stuff as well, by the way. So there was a general momentum because of the growth of cable television with 500 channels, okay, and satellite TV and all this new media, that there was a general consensus, not everybody, that you didn't need to have the government try to have to regulate this fairness doctrine because there were plenty of other, there were plenty of sources of whatever, across the spectrum. So I mean, that those are actually the facts. And by the way, all the FCC commissioners have to be confirmed by the Senate, and even Reagan's nominees were confirmed by a Democratic Senate. And, so I just wanted to put some balance on that, not to be a defender of Reagan, just to say that this idea that like this was like a top heavy thing. This was kind of more where society was going. Did Reagan do certain things on his own? Yeah, he fired the air traffic controllers. That's him. Okay, but the FCC was a much more balanced situation, maybe with a Republican leaning on it in terms of the fairness doctrine. I should also point out the equal time rule still exists. So if it's about two candidates running against each other, they have to give equal time. So if someone's running for the U.S. Senate, You know, on the Democratic line, you have to give the Republican nominee equal time, or vice versa. So that still does exist. And I'm done speaking with that.
To second Ken's point, the deregulation movement in the U.S. actually took place under Jimmy Carter. He was much more conservative Democrat and actually was opposed in a primary when he ran for re-election by Ted Kennedy. So yeah, it was already a movement happening throughout the political
I was
spectrum.
just talking about media, but you're correct, by the way. You know, Ted Kennedy was and that was bipartisan too. Ted Kennedy and Orrin Hatch, who couldn't really be politically more different, are the two senators who deregulated the trucking industry. So yeah, there was this general deregulation. The deregulation of the airlines came under Jimmy Carter, but I was just more specifically just talking about the media thing because there were also court cases involved with it. It's much more involved than than some people think. It's just like Reagan wanted to get rid of it, so therefore it's gone. You know.
Okay, next story from The Verge. Apple starts letting users report scammy apps from their App Store listings through its Report a Problem button. Yeah, there's a problem. We've read lots of headlines about them. There's a whole lot of scammy apps in the App Store, which there shouldn't be, because Apple's whole defense of its 30% tax is it keeps bad actors out of the App Store, but yet it doesn't. There's a whole lot of them, and that's a big problem. And so the very fact that they are kind of conceding the need for others to help them police, well, am I going to start getting a piece of that 30% cut that Apple takes if I'm going to help them find these scammy apps? They're now crowdsourcing the policing of the scammy apps, which is what they're charging 30% to do. Kind of interesting.
Can we heretofore call them scaps?
There could be a good name. I don't know if that's the exact. We could come up with something. The report a problem button is back. 1 month ago, we laid out a list of 8 obvious things Apple could do to prove it puts App Store users ahead of profits, and they've done one of them. Report a problem on an app. Okay, next up, also from The Verge. Amazon says that Prime members can send gifts with a phone number or email address, no physical address required, rolling out to mobile users in the continental US. There's currently no way to opt out of the new feature. Amazon's launching a new gifting feature today that will allow subscribers to send gifts without knowing the address. I kind of like it. Although no doubt this will somehow be abused.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I like it in theory, but scammers are going to find a way to use that for sure.
So there's a database of where everybody lives. How could that possibly go wrong?
Yeah. The gift givers have to be Amazon Prime members. The program is limited to the continental US, and it can only be used on mobile phones for the time being. Why is that? And even though Amazon has built in some safeguards, the gift giver never gets access to the recipient's mailing address. This sounds like a bad idea that is ripe for abuse by scammers, stalkers, and those who take pleasure in the online harassment of others. Here's how the new feature works. Gift giver wants to surprise recipient with a present but doesn't know the recipient's mailing address. Gift giver does, however, have the recipient's email address. Gift giver chooses the gift on his Amazon mobile app, selects the add gift recipient for easy returns options during the checkout, and will see an option to let the recipient provide their address. The giver then adds the recipient's email address. At this point, the gift giver's card isn't charged, but a hold is put on their payment card for the amount of the purchase. Recipient then gets a notice via either text message or email that there's a present from a gift giver waiting. Note that if recipient doesn't have an Amazon account, they can create one at this point. Oh, that's clever. That's a clever way to get people to sign up for Amazon if they haven't already. You have a gift waiting. Oh, this can apply to anybody. Holy smokes. So anyone can send anyone a gift through Amazon with their email.
This is just like PayPal, Tyler, and how they get people to sign up who don't use PayPal yet.
Yeah, well, it's how Facebook got everyone to sign up before, saying, there's a photo of you that somebody tagged, and you can now see what that photo is. The recipient has to have an Amazon account to accept the gift, but only the giver has to be a Prime member. The recipient can click on the notice from Amazon to reveal what the gift giver sent. Then they can decide whether to decline the gift, accept the gift, but convert it to an Amazon gift card. Oh, that's clever too. You can just say, no, give me the money. I don't actually want that gift. I wonder if they tell the gift giver they took the money instead. The gift giver won't be notified. Oh, even better. Or they can accept the gift. If the recipient accepts the gift, the giver's payment card is charged. If the recipient ignores the gift notification entirely, it expires within a few days and the gift giver gets their money back. I asked Amazon if there was a mechanism for its members to opt out of this new service. There is not. Amazon's stance is that if the recipient doesn't want the gift, they can just decline it or ignore the notification. What's to stop a troll, harasser, stalker from sending multiple gifts to a recipient just to spam them with notifications when the giver knows the recipient won't accept? Technically nothing, although the recipient could notify Amazon's customer service, which will decide what action to take. Such behavior would appear to violate Amazon's policies. Not everything Amazon sells is eligible to be a new gift, because I was just about to say, what if somebody gifts you a dildo? I mean, Amazon has all kinds of...
We were gonna, Tyler. I wish there was a certain member on stage that usually is. She has received those types of items.
But I mean, there's all kinds of crazy things that Amazon sells that nobody in their right mind would want to receive as a gift, like a fleshlight, like all kinds of, like, potentially offensive things.
Right.
So it says not everything Amazon sells is eligible for the new gift giving feature, but millions of items are. The company said the eligible items include products sold by Amazon and third party sellers on its platform. There's a clever feature.
That's when you just accept the money, right? Like when
Sure. Yeah, but then the problem is the person sending it to you thinks you accepted the dildo.
Dildo or money? That's the next show.
I
Dildo
feel
or
like
dough? Dildo or dough?
I feel like can't they just put like a block button on there to stop the harassment?
This is
This is
yeah.
this is
Good
kind of
time
like
for
what
Christmas.
happens with wallets, with crypto wallets. Like, so you have a public key and anybody can put anything in your wallet, which a lot of people will put whatever, like their NFT or their coin for their platform or whatever. This is what used to happen a lot, and they'll put them in their wallet, and then they would say, this person owns my thing, like this influential person. Like Vitalik Buterin used to get tons and tons of things gifted to him and just put into his wallet, and then people would say, look, you can look at his wallet, like you can see he owns my stuff too, so you should buy it too. So it's this idea of having this false testimonial, I think, that's really problematic. Aside from harassment and stuff, if they're sending stuff to you and you don't have the ability to stop it, then they might go forward and just say, well, this person has my product, and this person does
That's a
too,
good
and
point.
these are all happy users or whatever the hell it is. So I think it's problematic. It's really dangerous. The other thing is, once they have your address, or once they have any information, like one of the problems with the crypto wallets is that they can put in something that can track what's in your wallet, like, so they can steal it. So I do not know if that is something that's possible here, but for Amazon to connect a person and an address for them seems like a not great idea.
Is this
Yeah,
the part where you start saying that anything you see in my closet or in my household
It's
is
not
not
mine.
endorsed by me?
It's not mine. I
very good
swear,
I
point.
didn't
wife.
endorse it. I just got it.
Yeah,
I
this
swear, babe. It's
flashlight
not
was
my
gifted
stuff.
to
It's
Tyler.
not mine.
Why does it look so used, man?
That's terrible.
Wow. Well, yeah. I don't. We'll see how this plays out.
Okay. Next one from Wired. Clearview CEO says it has collected over 10 billion images from across the web and is building ways for police to find people, including de-blurring and mask removal.
Isn't that Charles?
Well, Charles was a co-founder, kind of a hidden co-founder, but the New York Times did a deep dive on that and confirmed that he was. And he revealed in here recently that it looks like he might be again soon. So, Wired says Clearview AI has new tools to identify you in photos. In an interview with Wired, CEO Hon Ton That said the company has scraped 10 billion photos from the web and is developing new ways to aid police into their surveillance. Clearview, by the way, normally when we read Clearview AI in the news, it's like the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal or BuzzFeed, most notably, doing takedown pieces, essentially. And a bit of fear mongering, I would say, to be fair. Interesting Wired to see how Wired will deal with this issue. It says Clearview has stoked controversy by scraping the web for photos and applying facial recognition to give police and others an unprecedented ability to peer into our lives. No, it doesn't let them peer into your life. It just identifies the person in the photo. Okay, moving on. Now the company's CEO wants to use AI to make Clearview's surveillance tool even more powerful. It may make it more dangerous and error-prone as well. Clearview has collected billions of photos from across websites that include Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and uses AI to identify a particular person in images. There you go. Now you're getting back to the facts here. Police and government agents have used the company's face database to help identify suspects in photos by tying them to online profiles. Dead on. The company's co-founder and CEO tells Wired that Clearview has now collected more than 10 billion images from across the web, more than 3 times as many as has been previously reported. CEO says the larger pool of photos means users, most often law enforcement, are more likely to find a match when searching for someone. He also claims the larger data set makes the company's tool more accurate. Clearview combined web crawling techniques, advances in machine learning that have improved facial recognition and disregard for personal privacy to create a surprisingly powerful tool. The CEO demonstrated the technology through a smartphone app by taking a photo of the reporter. The app produced dozens of images from numerous U.S. and international websites, each showing the correct person in images captured over more than a decade. The allure of such a tool is obvious, but so is the potential for its misuse. Clearview's actions sparked public outrage and a broader debate over expectations of privacy in an era of smartphones, social media, and AI. Critics say the company is eroding personal privacy. The ACLU sued Clearview in Illinois under a law that restricts the collection of biometric information in Illinois. The company also faces class action lawsuits in New York and California. Facebook and Twitter have demanded that Clearview stop scraping their sites. The pushback has not deterred the CEO. He says he believes most people accept or support the idea of using facial recognition to solve crimes, saying the people who are worried about it, they are very vocal, and that's a very good thing because I think over time we can address more and more of their concerns. He says some of Clearview's new technologies may spark further debate. CEO says it is developing new ways for police to find a person, including de-blur and mask removal tools. The first takes a blurred image and sharpens it using machine learning to envision what a clearer picture would look like. The second tries to envision the covered part of a person's face using machine learning models that fill in missing details of an image using best guesses based on statistical patterns found in other images. These capabilities could make Clearview's technology more effective or attractive, but also more problematic. It remains unclear how accurately the new techniques work, but experts say they could increase the risk that a person is wrongly identified and could exacerbate biases inherent in the system. Here's a quote. I would expect accuracy to be quite bad, and even beyond accuracy, without careful control over the data set and the training process, I would expect a plethora of unintended bias to creep in, says Alexander Madry, a professor at MIT who specializes in machine learning. Without due care, for example, the approach might make people with certain features more likely to be wrongly identified. Even if the technology works as promised, the ethics of unmasking people is problematic. Think of people who masked themselves to take part in a peaceful protest and were blurred to protect their privacy. CEO says tests have found the new tools improve the accuracy of Clearview's results. Any enhanced images should be noted as such, and extra care taken when evaluating results that may result from an enhanced image. The CEO says investigators already sometimes modify images to help find a match. For instance, by changing the brightness or cropping out certain details. He says deblurring an image or removing a mask may make errors more likely, but says Clearview's results are used only to generate leads that police use in their investigations. My intention with this technology is always to have it under human control. When AI gets it wrong, it is checked by a person, which is perhaps obvious that this is not a court case. the critics of this somehow mistakenly assume that this is a judge and jury and executioner in an app. It's not. It helps you. It suggests people who might be the person you're looking for, and then you have to actually continue to do the legal case with the lawyers, with the judge, with the jury. This doesn't help anything except save time for the police officer at the early stages of the investigation. So it's anyhow, rather fair post by the Wired, which is kind of to be expected. They still have geeks who actually write the articles there.
You know what it seems like that they're just expanding on, and I'm not even sure if this is really true, but from what you see in movies, when they like search the database, like put a photo in and search existing criminals, and then they find, matches that way. It just seems like it's kind of the same thing. No?
I guess my problem with it is that eventually, I mean, the first, I'm always preaching that every time we create a new technology, for all of us who think of all the amazing, wonderful ways it can help to fix society, there's that 5% out there figuring out how can I take advantage of this and good people for personal gain. And in this particular case, if you're starting out with a blurred image and you happen to have access to the data set, you can even start targeting people if you want to. And that's a problem, a big fucking problem, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm certain Stalin would have loved this type of software. But on the other side, I totally agree with you, Michael. But I'm less concerned about the technical side of this. I'm more concerned about the interface with humans because it's just going to, like Mike said, I think it's just going to embolden certain people to do the wrongs that they've probably always wanted to do. But I do think that there's a good side of this. If we can help find missing persons and things like that, it could be good. Just have to have the right oversight.
Agreed.
Next one, yeah, it's all about what government you work for. If you're in a government that abuses technologies, of which there's many, then this is a nightmare. If you're in a country if you're in Ellen, how would Norwegians feel about this, for example?
Yeah, this would never happen in Norway. We're probably never going to use this. But then again, we have a phone book. I know where everyone lives. It's not a problem.
I'm moving to Norway.
Well, they have a different system. Everyone knows everything about everybody there, so it's might not be. So the next one is that is Mark Gurman from Wall Street Journal, I believe, says that the MacBook Pros with the M1X are coming this month, and that he's giving very precise new specs about the new M1X processor, giving away the juicy bit that we're going to watch for whenever they announce their streaming event in October. But he says that the M1X new MacBook Pros, the processors include 8 high-performance cores, 2 high-efficiency cores, 16 or 32 graphics cores, and will launch in the next month. And then it's also expected that the AirPods 3s will also be part of that event. And
Santa needs Christmas, guys.
Yeah, speaking of which, Apple Watch Series 7 pre-orders start October 8th, shipping October 15th. And next up is from TechCrunch. Quest Software's product called One Identity acquires One Login, a rival to Okta and Pingin sign-on and identity management system. One Login raised $100 million series in 2019. So One Identity acquires One Login. More consolidation is afoot in the world of cybersecurity, specifically around services to help organizations manage identity and access. And let me see one login. Is this who I think it is? It is. It's an old friend of mine, Thomas Pedersen. I thought I recognized the name. He's from Denmark, and we were perhaps one of the very, very, very first customers of this, and we used it because of that issue we talked about here a couple of days ago, where when you have a former employee who leaves, and they can wreak havoc if you're not able to remove them from all of the accounts, because as a employee, you might get access to the company's YouTube account and Twitter account and Facebook account and this account and that account and this account and dozens of accounts that you lose track of over time. Right? And so when you remove them from your company, then you forgot, oh shit, we gave Robert the password to the Instagram account, but we forgot because it was Sarah who gave it to him, and Sarah's not here anymore, and she forgot to tell that you see the problem. So Thomas, who's a lovely dude, kudos to him on selling this, and it made it really simple, because when you bring on it, like I said, I think we were the first big employee user he ever had, because we had, we used it in the way that he intended it, and it was like when a new employee comes on, you no longer actually share the passwords to them. You just pick which services they get access to. Ding, 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 ding. You add it to their account. Okay, you get Facebook, you get Instagram, you get YouTube, you get this access to those accounts. You never need to know the password. Every time you need to log into anything, you go to his website, onelogin.com, and then you click the Facebook button, and then it logs you into the company's Facebook account. And then when you get fired, they just remove your account and along with it every service you had access to. And it solved a really important problem. So anyway, just excited for this, Thomas. That's very cool. And
yeah, it's actually really brilliant.
It's genius.
So I imagine Denmark, the Danish geek ecosystem, will be happy. He's quite well known in the Copenhagen geek community as well. Okay, next up is an ophthalmologist details using the iPhone 13 Pro's macro camera to document changes in his patient's eyes, for which he previously had a $15,000 setup. Dr. Tommy Korn recently went viral for showing how he uses the new iPhone 13 Pro macro camera capabilities to document the eyes of his patients, where previously he had to use a professional kind of specialized hardware that cost $15,000. Now he can do it with his phone. By the way,
so instead of otoscope, the ophthalmoscope, he's using the phone?
Yes.
Wow.
And why didn't they use that in their annual keynote event to showcase the new features? So the next one's from CNBC. They say there are filings now that TikTok's European revenue grew 545% in the past year. So 5.4x. That's a lot of growth in 1 year. Up from head count grew to 1,294, up from 208. So the team size grew 5x.
We got to start listening to the younger people who keep telling us that we're uncool for staying at Facebook.
I like how CNBC feels the need to point out that also its losses have soared from 107 million last year to 644 million. So now they used to lose 170 million a year. Now they're losing 644 million per year, implying that it's not one of the fastest growing businesses on the planet. I guess it's relevant, but it's it's good to know how much of their investment money they're spending, how much they're burning. That is relevant when you put it in that context. Next up is Qualcomm and SSW partners to acquire Veoneer, which makes driver assistance systems for autonomous vehicles, for just this very small, cheap price of $4.5 billion. And this was the same company that Magda tried to acquire, and that didn't go through. And now Qualcomm and SSW have acquired this driver assistance system.
I
Next,
love when you hear these companies worth billions of dollars you've never heard of. It's like, where did they come from? It's amazing.
yeah, the autonomous driving space is just unfathomable. The companies who really stake out and win that horse race, who build the autonomous car networks or the key components, because there's multiple suppliers that will go into autonomous vehicles. Although Tesla is
You'll never hear of them. Yeah.
yeah, well, same with parts in your iPhone. There's a bunch of companies that you don't necessarily know all the parts makers. Same with a Tesla. There's a lot of suppliers that Tesla has that you don't know. And even if Tesla is one of the winners of the autonomous race, there will be many. But I mean, these are just going to be huge, 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 huge cash cows that build these autonomous vehicle networks, which will remove the need for anyone to own a car. So it's going to be massive. All of the local transport for people and products and things in real time. The next one from Bloomberg says there's analysis that SoftBank's Vision Fund 2 is investing at twice the pace of its predecessor, the original Vision Fund, growing its portfolio fivefold in under 9 months, despite fewer staff. And in fact, their CEO of the Vision Fund just stepped down. So what's going on, Tyrone? And our friend Charles has pointed out, and he wants you to remember, does he not, that he called it first, that SoftBank's doing some shady shizzy, and he
Just saying.
just
Just
saying,
saying.
it's October 4th, and I'm calling it yet again. Watch out. There's a big investigation coming. There's going to be a shakedown on SoftBank. But it's not unreasonable what he's proposing, because SoftBank Vision Fund 1, when it launched, was $1 billion fund, and that was unprecedented. That was like, holy shit, SoftBank just won tech. Oh my God, $1 billion fund. Oh my sweet Jesus. They're taking over. And now SoftBank Vision Fund 2, which I think is in the 5 billion category, which just makes all the other VCs look like, kids on the playground. Like, what the hell are we doing? And SoftBank can just throw money. And SoftBank, when they invest, they throw crazy money into these companies, which, again, Charles points out, is this normal? No, it's not. It's unprecedented, the amount of money SoftBank throws into companies like WeWork. And that one didn't turn out so well. But there's plenty others where they throw money that seems suspicious, unusually large amounts, suspiciously large amounts of money that they throw into some of these companies, which his argument that he is speaking in code is that SoftBank is a whole bunch of money laundering. Essentially, people have found a way to wash money where they just throw it into VCs. And SoftBank's a great one because they're such international presence where they could get Chinese and folks throwing money into SoftBank that then gets invested into American and Japanese companies and whatnot. So he might have a point there that it's a clever new way to clean up some money, and that's why there's an
I heard
investment.
a story.
Yeah,
I heard a story, Tyler, about a company in Japan that was acquired. I don't know the name, just because of the tax breaks. Like, they didn't need the technology or the people, but literally this big conglomerate was buying companies for tax purposes and then just whatever, shutting them down.
could be
I don't know if you
because
see a lot of that.
yeah, you could have, for example, in India, Indian car companies get tax breaks that non-Indian companies do not. So you might acquire a domestic company in a geography or in a tax region.
They
Yeah,
have that in the U.S. as well, in certain economic places,
zones. Yeah,
where they're, economic zones, exactly. They have that. There's, like, in Brooklyn, I know for sure exists in areas that are up and coming or need to be at least.
Okay, so
Hey,
then
So
Tyler,
it's
yes,
not a surprise.
since we're in a tech room, I just want to say Instagram is down again. And I just went to see, and apparently everyone's going on Twitter to find out what's going on.
let me give you the update from Thailand here. Let's see, it's down in Thailand. Yeah,
I'm here in Turkey. It's down here too, and it's everyone's going on Twitter to find out what's going on. But it's been happening. This is the fourth time that I can think of recently.
oh, let's see if Bloomberg has any kind of hot sauce on this article. Masayoshi Son has sharply accelerated the pace of his startup investments this year, quintupling the number of companies in his Vision Fund 2 portfolio in less than 9 months. The founder at SoftBank has cut 115 deals this year, that's 2 per week, according to Bloomberg's calculations based on the data released by the company. That's more than the combined number of deals of the first Vision Fund made since its start in 2017, showing Mr. Son, or Son-san as he's called in Japan, remains confident in his investing capability despite blunders with office sharing service WeWork and Greensill. Yeah, he's incredibly confident in his investing ability. By the way, Bloomberg, I realize you're a journalist. Not every investment a tech investor does works out. In fact, the majority of them don't work out. So even though he had one that didn't work out, he still has a fantastic track record by tech standards. So of course he's supremely confident in his investing abilities. So the faster pace of deal making is sure to raise questions about whether Son is risking similar missteps. No, not really. Especially as a string of high profile departures depletes top talent at the Vision Fund. 7 managing partners have left since March of last year, and last week, Deep Nishar, the sole senior managing partner, which I called the CEO, but in VC land, they're called the managing partner, and leading authority on AI, said he would depart by the end of the year. Vision Fund's track record was not great to begin with, and now they are doing more with fewer people, says Amir, senior strategist at Asymmetric Advisors, who recommends shorting SoftBank stock. Potential failure rates are bound to be higher, but you can imagine Son just throwing caution to the wind and playing the percentages. The total headcount at SoftBank Investment Advisors, which oversees both vision funds, has shrunk from about 500 people to about 400, according to a person familiar with matter. Several senior people who departed grew frustrated with Son's overriding influence, which left them with little real authority. People familiar with matter said the Vision Fund's compensation structure also caused tensions, with executives limited in their ability to profit from successful startups they introduced to Son, the people said. Yeah, he's a superstar. Okay, so now we had a similar article yesterday where it was Jeff Bezos's rocket company, Blue Origin. They had somebody who called themselves a whistleblower, but the only whistle they were really blowing was saying they felt it was a sexist environment, and that they themselves wouldn't feel safe riding on the rockets, and that it was the Jeff show. Well, goddamn right, it's the Jeff show. He's the world's richest person, and he's throwing his extra money into this company. Did you sign up not thinking it was going to be the Jeff show? Did somebody trick you into thinking this was something other than the Jeff show? He shapes it like a penis. At what point did you think this might not be the Jeff show?
When they didn't receive the Amazon gift from the Jeff show.
So and then similarly with Masayoshi-san, Masa is a super high profile mega celebrity. He's the one of the biggest characters in Japan, in Asia, in fact. Are you telling me you signed up to be part of Team Masayoshi-san? And it's like saying I'm joining. Hey, I just joined what would be good? I just joined Madonna's band as a backup dancer, and I just feel like it's the Madonna show. I mean, it was just all about her every night. Yeah, exactly. Did you think otherwise?
Oh boy.
This is common
Hey,
sense.
Facebook and WhatsApp are down too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Facebook, WhatsApp, and
Yeah,
Instagram are all
WhatsApp
down.
is also down for me.
That's
Yes.
like
they're
it's
Same
down.
here.
DNS. That's a DNS attack.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
This is a global outage of all. Oh my goodness.
They're
Oh,
taking that think piece. They're taking that
Tokyo
hit piece
is
way too far.
Japan is down too.
They just knocked down Facebook altogether.
So in a single fell swoop, we got rid of all the evils of society in
there,
a single
problem
day.
fixed. Mark Zuckerberg is like, fuck it, y'all. I'm out.
Good one,
I
Chris.
bet you it has something to do with this Pandora stuff, and they're like, hey, you know what? We got to slow this down.
He's gonna have a T-shirt. Fuck around and find out.
But you know what? I just got off of a messenger call. I mean, literally 15 seconds ago. So that's still up and running.
Well, I love
Mhm.
how everyone in this room is reporting real time. Talk about breaking news. It's pretty cool.
Of course.
It's what we
So
do.
is this
That's what
Pegasus
it's
or
all
Worldwide.
about.
is this Pegasus related or Cambridge Analytica?
What? Yeah, this is weird. Yeah. All of their properties all down globally. That's wild.
Trending on Instagram. Delete Facebook. Instagram down. Instagram down.
Great news for Clubhouse.
Oh,
We're
well,
up.
yeah, maybe.
Yay.
Yeah, this is weird. This is really weird. What's
Well,
going on?
Tyler, last week you talked about that one button that every country should have. Maybe they all pressed it at the same time.
This is too weird. Maybe it's a really clever psyops situation to show that they're not the big bad bully that everyone's making them out to be. That there's, they're a bunch of inept, people who can't even keep a website up.
This is like the okay, it's put kind of charged, but it's like the day without Mexicans they did here in California. Like the day
Oh,
without Facebook.
maybe they're
You
trying
see
to
how
teach
bad
the
the left
world.
is
Oh, you
about it.
think we're so bad, huh?
Yeah.
Let's see how long you can last, y'all.
Let's see
You know
how
what,
you can
Tyler?
survive
This
without
deserves a
us
Let's
now.
see
music
who
note.
needs who, huh?
Yeah.
This
Uh-huh.
this deserves a music note.
Oh,
Who
wouldn't
need the
that be fun?
likes? Who need the
That's what I
dopamine
thought.
now? Who need the dopamine now?
This might be a way for them to actually up the scores of the leaked list we had last week regarding now the body shaming is not longer there. So let's see if the
Mm-hmm.
numbers go up.
I, I,
Exactly. All the problems are solved now.
I just find it very, I always ask, why this, why now? And it's less about Facebook for me, and I'm not trying to go conspiracy theory, but every time there's a major leak of something big that touches a broad sector of, let's just say, highly influential people, unusual things tend to happen, or politicians tend to do things.
No,
Like
no,
right
no.
before
Cue the
Brexit, you had
cue the
Cameron
music.
go the,
I think I figured it out.
with the
Or
Panama
maybe a
Papers.
hacker.
I
A
think I
hacker
figured
got
it
it.
out. Here's what's going on. They they're doing data right now on, and they're
Ah,
going to find out
Yeah.
that more people killed themselves during the blackout than when they were
Mm.
not, and they're going to say, "Told you we are a net benefit to society," or something along those
Yes.
lines.
just think if they had owned Clubhouse, we wouldn't be able to talk right
That
now.
is dark, man.
I see it as potential monopoly, guys. They
I
own
feel
too
so
much.
lonely all of a
Weren't
sudden.
we talking about EMPs earlier? Like maybe
On the
somebody's robbing something.
on the other side of the ledger, Francis Hogan had 296 followers 16 hours ago when I said, let's see how many it jumps from after 60 minutes. And now she has 13,500.
Hey, sorry to interrupt, Tyler. Anthony Moose has something to say, and I
He's
apologize,
already
Anthony.
he's
I'm
he's already
on
been
the phone.
invited up.
Yep. See you, bud.
Here he comes.
Hey, thanks everyone. Thanks, Tyler. And just to add to what Robert Johnson was mentioning, why now, why here, and why, right? And again, I'm not putting my tinfoil hat on, or just really
No, you
thinking.
can feel free to put the tinfoil hat on.
Feel free.
Let that
You
Well, okay,
are.
wear it proudly, my friend.
Well,
Go
when you're
ahead.
well, again, it's more of like if I'm a strategic Wall Street insider or Silicon Valley insider, right? Place myself in their shoes, and again, why? So everyone knows the ETFs, QQQQ. What are they primarily traded on?
Yep.
Nasdaq
Yep.
Top 100s.
Yep.
Then then you take it to next further, the FANGs, right? FAANGM, whatever.
Yep.
Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, Google,
Yep.
Microsoft, right? So the F and FANGs, ironically, the servers are down today. If anyone knows how cloud or servers work, it's all the servers are in the middle of America. I forget which states, but they're pretty much
It is a
like
global outage.
underneath.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a freaking global outage, but like 80-90% of their servers are pretty much in the middle of America, pretty much underneath Nebraska, Missouri, I forget, Alabama. It's like in the middle of
Mm-hmm.
America, right?
Hmm.
But where the markets, and you see the markets are taking a dive today. All right, the markets are bloodshed today. That's concerning. Again, the F and Fangs are down. A couple weeks ago, we had the Evergrande, Chinese real estate properties that threw a curveball into markets. Is this like a systemic way of breaking the markets down, possibly,
Hmm.
or is this a buy on the dip opportunity? So and to your point, Tyler, and others, like, hey, shows the world why Instagram or Facebook is that important. I mean, I'm trying to look at who viewed my story on Instagram this morning. But that said, like, the way I worked on Wall Street at a very young age, and I like trading. I like trading a lot. And the way things are going to me in this event-driven market, I believe this could shape up to be a big buy on the dip opportunity, or this could shut up for more bloodshed. So it's interesting. And again, I always ask why here, why now? And I'm Anthony Moons, and I'm done speaking.
Okay. Yeah. The tech stocks are getting killed today.
They're getting crushed.
7% on some of these. My lord.
How could Mr. Steep Decline miss this one?
Yeah.
How is your Shopify?
I'm still on Shopify, net way up because it's gone up quite tremendously over the past, year. So, but man, this is just like a really Anthony, what's the CNBC take on why the markets are down so much today?
It's funny. I've stopped watching CNBC years ago after I interned for a billionaire hedge fund manager. Just because if you don't know how to play the emotions on CNBC, then you're screwed. So I stopped tuning into CNBC, and I only primarily rely on Bloomberg.
Okay.
Okay, so Tyler, I can give you so basically you've got not this week but next week. There's going to be a lot of earnings released. There'll be some this week.
Yeah.
So some people, maybe given where valuations are, want to
Yeah.
lighten up a bit ahead of the news. Interest rates have been moving up a bit. You've got all of the dissension in Washington, and forget about the infrastructure bills. I mean, we're still only maybe 2 weeks away from disaster with the debt ceiling. So there's a lot to be concerned about, particularly when you have markets that have been very frothy. I mean, there's
But
not
this is
nothing.
also historical. Like for the month of September, it's typically the worst month of the year.
Yeah,
So
Yeah,
yeah.
I
And then,
agree.
if you
Agree.
go year over year VIX, right? VIX was at 45 last year at this time. We're at 24.
Yeah.
President Biden is addressing the debt limit right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Live. Yeah.
That too. So I think this is a buy on the dip opportunity. We need the infrastructure bill passed. This is an event-driven market. There's only maybe 150 hedge fund managers that really pull the strings on this market. I worked for a few of them. And so, yeah, if I place my feet in their shoes, I think an infrastructure bill is going to be passed around the corner and the debt ceiling has to be raised. So my hunch is this is going to be will be buy on the dip opportunity. And there's a few people that line their interest. Maybe Mark just again also wants to show that, hey, our servers were down for a few hours and you guys all freaked out.
Just to be clear, I just turned on CNN. Biden isn't really addressing anything other than he's complaining that the GOP won't help him. So he doesn't have a solution to the debt ceiling issue yet. It's not like he's announcing a solution. He's just venting.
Okay.
I feel like
He's
we should
putting
try to listen to
pressure.
the whole
It's
thing.
Yep.
pressure.
That's why when the
It's
markets
coming.
get a
Solution is
surprise,
coming.
it's a big V-shaped recovery.
Okay.
I think
So
it's an
can I put on my
introduction. I think it's an introduction to China. Welcome to China. Where where your internet is down and your access to your Facebook and gaming and everything will be down. This is life in the new age.
can I put on my tin hat
Yes.
and ask that could this be the timing or the timing of all this? Maybe another disgruntled people or anonymous hackers or whatever after this interview, or other people like could that possibly be the case
That's a very interesting point. After
Um,
yesterday,
after yesterday?
globally, that would be
Yeah.
tricky.
Unless there's some kind of a coordination. I mean, like I said, it's a tin hat, but I'm just
Yeah,
asking.
and across all properties,
Mm-hmm.
that's what's so weird about it.
And also
it's like the
Messenger is
one
down
red
too.
button, right? Like the take
It's
down
like a,
everything
yeah, yeah.
everywhere.
I mean, doesn't Facebook have an on and off button? I don't know.
I
Coordinated
think she's
effort
right.
and maybe, underground wiring, whatever the, main feed is, they just cut that off and maybe blame it on some sort of earthquake or any other disaster.
Or
No,
Mark Zuckerberg just saying, you know
So
what, I'm taking this down and you guys can see what the world is like without everything I've built and complain about it
Suck it,
afterward and
world.
Yeah,
shut,
yeah.
yeah, and shut this
hey,
woman up. Yeah.
can I ask a question? So I just attempted to go into my financial apps, and all of them, even though I'm normally just able to log in with my face, all of them are requiring me to put in my code, my password again. So I don't know.
oh,
Maybe there is something here.
well, then wait a minute.
Oh,
This
that's
this
huge.
this could get very interesting because a lot of people have connected
Log
Facebook,
in by Facebook.
their Facebook Connect button to a lot of third-party apps. And so while
Mm.
Facebook's down, you won't be able to log
Mm,
into lots
Oh
of
my God, yes.
websites. So
Right.
this could be a very clever way of reminding people we're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
So watch out, guys.
However, I
I
can't.
challenge you to look at.
Yeah.
No, I just challenge. I'm saying take this opportunity and go into your. I don't know what mine is for. I think mine is for my Fisher investment account. So when you said everything was going down, I'm like, I wonder how much money I've lost in the last, hour or so. And I decided to go in, and it requires me to put in my information again. So
Yeah. But
I'm on an Apple.
but
Just be really careful today, guys. A
Yeah,
lot of this
I
stuff
won't be
can
logging in today.
a lot of this stuff can be DNS poisoning. Basically they're pushing you to other sites. So, I mean, I'm speculating again, but this is some of the mechanical mechanisms that are in play here, especially when a large network like this goes down. The biggest, most vulnerable part is actually the domain name system because it's 80 years old, or not 80. It's since the 80s, and like it's very archaic. So like that's one of the easiest ways to really cause all these to go down is to mess with the DNS system. That's the domain name system. When you type Facebook, it resolves facebook.com into the telephone number or the IP address, if you will. It's like a phone book for the internet. And when those get all screwed up, a lot of bad things can happen, especially if, you're going to Fisher Investments and, you might put in your credentials for what you think is Facebook because everything points to it being Facebook. But if there's this DNS poisoning that's going on right now, possibly, I would be very leary.
so it
Just to
That's
rest
a
started.
your
great
nerves,
point.
I'm not that stupid to put my Fisher in Facebook. I don't link the two. I have a little bit more of a brain. Just
The
Well,
saying.
that's what I was just going to ask you. Did you ever log in through Facebook with it? Because if that's not the case, then there's something even more interesting happening there.
Yeah,
So
no,
Hmm.
I have never logged into my investment account through Facebook. No, they're kept completely separate.
there's an article out now that the outages started at 40 minutes after the hour. So it's now been 28 minutes that it's been down, and all those services remain
It's
inaccessible.
it's definitely DNS. I'm looking at the DNS propagation right now, and all of them are down. There's only Beijing, China, Yogyakarta, Indonesia, and Lima, Peru running right now, as well as Bursa, Turkey. Everyone else's DNS servers are down.
The
I
outages
was I
quickly
was also
started
gonna say.
trending on Twitter as users flocked to competing social networks to check to see if other users were affected by the downtime. Humorously, the hashtag delete Facebook is also trending on Twitter as the company battles continued pushback against the effects of its platform on young users. While some Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp outages only affect certain geographic regions, the services are down worldwide today. This includes the US, UK, Brazil, Kuwait, and more. Yeah, that's what worldwide means, by the way, is
Hmm.
including, yeah, Brazil's part of the world. So is Kuwait. Yeah. The outage is also affecting platforms and services that use Facebook login, like Niantic, creator of Pokemon Go, says that it is looking into reports of errors associated with Facebook login and will update here once we have more information. Facebook has not yet publicly commented on the ongoing outages affecting all of its services. We'll be sure to update the story as we learn more. The issue appears to be related to some sort of DNS problem affecting Facebook servers. Are Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp currently down for you? Let us know in the comments. And yep.
They're just getting a beating, aren't they?
Might it be that it's the Borg that come after them?
Hey, did anyone watch the 60 Minutes yesterday? So Tina, who's in the audience, everyone knows Tina up here. She was just like bombarding me with text messages saying like, hey, you got to watch the 60 Minutes. It's going to be up in 10, 15 minutes. And fortunately, I got held up, so I didn't watch it. But did anyone up here on stage get to watch the 60 Minutes?
Bits of it. I watched what CBS released as their highlights of it. And
I'm heading into office now, and I'm going to dive through and watch the entire thing because it's definitely related to whatever happened yesterday.
I think we have discussed earlier, right?
Yeah, she
In
wrote a
the
blog
session.
post about it herself, which I've read, and she's been
So, guys,
tweeting. Yeah.
you can just type 157.240.194.35. That should bring up Facebook.
Oh, to get around the DNS?
Yeah, let me see if that works.
Hey, Tyler
Yes.
and group,
You
this is
No.
Robert real quick.
Yeah.
Looking at the market,
Yep.
you got Facebook down over 5%. You have DocuSign down about 5%. Um, you got a number of these things down 4 to 5%.
Yeah.
So it's now granted, I'm not saying anybody do an emotional move, so but it's just a FYI. This is kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's rough out there today.
These are not particularly big moves. I think that you have to realize that the market's gone up a lot. You're going to get some retracement. You've got a lot of negative headwinds. This is nothing. I remember when the New York Stock Exchange, when the Dow went down 22% in a single day. So everybody gets upset about
Stop, bring back
5%.
those days, please.
I'm just saying 5% moves in the kind of world we live in today. You should expect them.
Yeah.
Yeah, but is anything up?
Bitcoin, maybe?
Let me check. I
The
show
commodities are down too. Like gold is down.
Gold has been down. What about
gold
It's
gold ETF is up.
definitely it's an
how's
entire market
BTC?
correction, and again, all the algorithms are doing this market correction, right? So mind you, it's the F and Fang. You take one
Mm.
big thing down, they all move because of the
No, but
correlated algorithms.
where did it?
Anyone checking to
Yeah,
see
Oh,
Twitter
but
and
Tesla's up.
TikTok
they
anymore?
all Tesla's up because it opened way up at the opening, but
Because it exceeded expectations on sales.
Yeah,
yeah,
Tesla was going to get up because of all the product. I mean, the numbers they met
yeah, but
And
Tesla
companies,
beyond
went Tesla went
expectation.
up on news last night, and so it opened. The
Yeah.
pre-market made it go up, and then the chart has gone down since the market opened, but it opened above due to pre-market because of that news.
and
Same with
companies
it.
are up today. You guys don't follow them because they're boring and they're not eco-friendly and all of that. But Halliburton, Transocean, Williams Company, Devon Energy, all traditional, a lot of the traditional energy companies are up.
Yeah,
So
but that's because oil is going up.
right, okay, so
Yeah, well, you also got food and bev. Those companies tend to be doing solid, and also as a purchaser of cigarette companies, they're doing,
But
Altria's solid.
but then also the market dove from the opening, which was, what time is it now? 3 hours ago, and it's been going sideways ever for the past hour. So it's not related to the Facebook outage because the Facebook outage is only 40 minutes old, and so the market's been going sideways since the Facebook.
It's everything. It's obviously Biden with the debt ceiling. It's the F and Fangs of Facebook. It's a bigger
Yeah.
question whether Could be more hack attacks. And you see, this is the thing about technology a lot of people forget, right? Tech is built on so much underlying infrastructure, whether it's networks or DNS systems like Chris was mentioning, right? And this is why I'm also skeptical about Bitcoin. You know, there could be one day when Bitcoin literally doesn't have a value. It will go to null
No,
because
that
people
will no,
realize
that's
what's.
not true.
I'm just saying it might happen one day, but whatever. That's completely different tangent.
Okay, so
Tyler, I
That's
gotta
like
yeah,
say, the last
Skynet.
time this happened was, the same thing from where I am right now in Turkey. The last time we had WhatsApp down as well as Instagram and Facebook, it happened maybe about a year ago, a year and a half ago. But what's interesting is that, within 10 or 15 minutes, it came back up. And I remember because we're all trying to make phone calls and we had conference calls scheduled. But this one has been going on now for about maybe half an hour, 40 minutes,
yep.
which is
And Netta,
definitely
you're still
too long.
down. Netta, you're still
I'm
down
still down. I'm still down. Yeah.
because it says Turkey
Uh,
should be up, but that means the servers are down now too.
Not
So
yet. I'm practicing my TikTok dance. Nothing else going on here.
So some headlines here that we need to run through. Charlotte-based payments processing and automation company files for an IPO. Who cares? We covered the TikTok revenue was up. Middle Eastern e-commerce service called Noon.com raises $2 billion from Saudi Arabia's public investment fund, and Buju raises $300 million at a $18 billion valuation, and Grab raises its stake in Indonesian mobile wallet provider Ovo, up to 90% of the company now from 39% previously. And what else here? Those are your big headlines at the moment. Yeah. So we can now get into the tweets. For example, from Heyman, Kanye West to step up into the world of technology files a trademark for Donda to be used for electronics and tablets and computers, audio speakers, etc. So we might see, now that Kanye's done quite well in the fashion space, consumer fashion, I guess, he might get into consumer tech. We could have a Dondra phone.
what is that?
He's
Well,
Is that
coming
the
up with his own
well,
technology
so
company and phones and all those kind of stuff.
yeah,
like the Will I Am brands?
yeah. So Heyman also sends in this one that Israel to launch global startup competition for desert technology solutions. Israel is spearheading an international competition for startups to develop and promote desert tech to battle desertification, and climate change. That's smart. Rhonda sends in this one from Yahoo Finance that Aurora and FedEx team up on driverless tech to address the trucker shortage. So you're going to have more of these autonomous truck companies are going huge, and FedEx, that's going to be amazing. Autonomous FedEx vehicles, but that's a whole lot of people with jobs that won't have jobs in the near future. My goodness. By the way, I saw a video. It was by Vice. It's actually a year old, where they drive around and the journalist and the cameraman are inside a autonomous semi truck driving down a highway somewhere in America. And the journalist is kind of stunned. It's making turns. It's doing all the things it needs to do. It goes on the highway. It even passes a slow driver on the highway. Someone else cut it off. No problem. No problems. Just no problems at all. And the journalist admittedly is wildly impressed. They pull the truck into a diner. And the CEO of the company and the journalist sit down at a diner. That's a truck stop for truckers. It's a diner for truckers. And so they start talking to truckers at the diner on camera about autonomous cars and autonomous trucks. Now, as the journalist himself had just driven several miles in this autonomous truck, and now he's sitting with actual truckers talking about the future, which will not involve them, and what they think about that, and then took them out to see the truck and everything else. And it's called Vice: The Future of Work. and automation, I think was the name of it. And that's the whole, it's like an hour long, but the first 15 minutes is just really, really good. I've not yet seen that kind of humanitized aspect of like bringing together those two parties, you know, to meet face to face and discuss the issue. And it's wild. It's really, but the truckers themselves said, yeah, you know, we kind of knew this day would come. At first they were like, nah, it's never going to happen. And then they showed them the truck and then they're like, yeah, they kind of turned their tune very quickly. Really interesting to see. That were just really amazing capturing that. You could do an entire documentary movie on all of the other jobs other than the truckers and bringing those people who are going to soon be replaced and put them directly in the, you know, face to face with the technology that's currently replacing them. And there's 30 different jobs you could do that with at the moment. So yeah, that could be a fantastic documentary. I would pay good money to watch that. The next one, kind of related. Katerina, who often sends in fantastic tweets, sends this one in. It's a map. I'm going to retweet it right now, so it's at the top of our Twitter feed, and it shows the migration and the Nobel Prize. More than 1/4 of physicists. It talks about where Nobel Prize winners are originally from and where they have moved to. And the question is, which country are basically all the Nobel Prize winners moving to? There's one country that they all move to.
The US.
Are you ready?
Thailand.
Denmark. Norway.
Norway.
US.
Honduras.
America.
Switzerland.
Finland.
New Zealand.
Of course, the U.S.
Mexico.
Oh shit! I already retweeted it, so it's not a fair competition. But
missed the question.
everybody who said America, give yourself a nice point and a little clap on the back. You did well there. And Messi got one wrong. Everybody, I don't know if you noticed what just happened there, but Messi
She messed up. Messi messed up.
Messi.
Are you happy about that, Tyler?
Is everything okay, Messi?
I didn't have my coffee.
Facebook was down. She couldn't get the answers.
Yeah.
Oh.
So basically, it shows a map of where all of the migration of Nobel Prize winners. They originate in all kinds of interesting places, but they all end up in America for some reason. So it's quite interesting.
All right, guys, I'm going there. My grandfather, he was a big white guy. Not that that matters. Army guy. And when I got a really nice car in college, he said, for that kind of money, that thing better give you, oral. And I think if you were able to make a truck do that, these truckers would definitely jump on the autonomous truck train. Sorry for that. Totally inappropriate.
God, the 5 p.m.
Be thankful we don't have clips, Chris.
Don't worry. Anyone who can really put me in the doghouse already does every night. So
just some of the extras. Okay, so next article here is from David Crace. Sends this one in from Bloomberg. The headline says, for Tesla, Facebook, and others, AI's flaws are getting harder to ignore. Investors are pouring money into AI, despite clear setbacks in self-driving cars, social media, and even healthcare. Okay, and next one's from Poppy, and the headline says, how plastic waste affects global pollution. Plastic waste has been one of the biggest problems in our world today. The United States produces the most plastic waste in the world, and it's a deep dive on this issue of plastic. I just tweeted that one out, and then I just realized I screwed up and did not put our live stream at the top of the room. Hold on here while I fix this. Undo, unpin.
Oh no, Tyler, you messed up too.
Yes.
it's not just messy.
No.
Yeah, not just messy.
No, I have a friend now.
I'm blaming
Mercury
Elizabeth.
I'm
retrograde.
just
Okay.
jealous, Messi. I've never even won a single Jeopardy.
Facebook is down. Oh my God.
Okay, so I fixed it. So now the top tweet is our live stream. Okay, so now back to the tweets. Amazon tells Tesla to hold its beer in contest for stupidest robot ever built, is the headline from the Next Web, who normally they're quite geeky and they're quite pro tech. And I guess they don't like the new Amazon little home robot. Jeff Bezos and Amazon have taken up the challenge thrown down by Elon Musk and Tesla, who can build the stupidest consumer robot imaginable. Well, let's see here. Who wrote this one? Did you?
TNW.
Tristan Green. I recall having strong words for Tristan previously. The article says, would you kindly install this surveillance equipment in your home so Amazon can monetize your existence, please and thank you. Amazon held a hardware event yesterday to announce an all-new lineup of data capturing tools it intends to market as robot assistants and security devices. Interestingly, the general public seems to be enjoying the idea. Where Tesla was almost universally mocked for its silly robot announcement stunt, Amazon's latest reveals have been met with a lot of positivity. Apparently, people are really into the idea of letting a giant mega corporation fill their home with surveillance equipment. But there's more to worry about when it comes to in-home surveillance robots than just privacy. If you can stomach it, here's a pandering video of Astro Robot that everyone is calling cute and adorable on social media. The new Astro Robot, and the new Ring.
No, they're not, Tyler. No one's calling it cute on social media.
Yeah,
because social media is not even up.
The journalist says the new Astro Robot and the new Ring Always Home camera are among the absolute stupidest consumer products I've ever seen, and that includes a direct comparison to the spandex-clad human pretending to be a robot at the Tesla announcement. At least Elon Musk's idiotic idea for a robot is joke-worthy. There's absolutely nothing funny about the Amazon robots. Note, I want to believe I'm no hater. I want a robot in my house. I want a cool tech buddy. I promise I'm not just crapping on the concept. I just hate the execution. Amazon's robots are not your friends. They're data collecting tools designed to exploit you in any way they possibly can in order to gather more data. I won't even get into the privacy concerns. Security experts with decades of experience dealing with these kinds of threats have condemned Amazon's in-home surveillance gear as privacy nightmares for years. At least a dozen articles have been published in the past 24 hours telling everyone these things are privacy nightmares. If you won't listen to those experts, you sure aren't going to listen to me. But let's forget the privacy problems for a second. Here's a few other reasons you should hold off on putting any sort of Amazon spyware device in your home, especially mobile robots. First, Amazon is intentionally insulting your intelligence. You absolutely don't need a robot to tell you if you left your stove on. If Amazon wanted to give people peace of mind, it would sell you a $10 sensor switch that can kill the gas feed to your smart stove. If gas is flowing for X amounts a second without proper combustion, no surveillance required. And you don't need a robot that can respond to glass breaking and alert you if something or someone is unlawfully entering your home, because it's much, much less expensive to hire an alarm service, a company that specializes in such things. You can combine external cameras with entry point sensors to create a tried and true intrusion alert system. No stranger is looking at 24/7 video feeds of the inside of your house required. This robot doesn't solve any problems whatsoever. Its only useful function is as an entertainment device. The first time your parents come over and you get to show off the handful of tricks it can do, everyone will be delighted. And as anyone who's owned a smart speaker for more than a month knows, that new tech euphoria wears off pretty quickly. Once you're no longer entranced by Astro or the Ring drone, you're stuck with an expensive reminder that you're personally subsidizing Amazon's AI research. Not only are you freely giving away you and your family's most intimate data, but you actually paid cash upfront for the privilege, and lol, after a year, you'll have to pay a subscription fee. That's the dumbest, most scam-malicious consumer hardware experience I've ever seen. Charles Ponzi's ghost is frickin' gobsmacked right now, and off somewhere moaning about how he was born way too soon. And seriously, folks, have you seen the trailer? Amazon couldn't come up with a single useful depiction of its robot's abilities, so it just does a BB-8 impression through the whole video until finally at the end it silences a skeptic because it delivers them a beer. Get the fuck out of here. Who
So,
the
so is
What?
he or is he
Tell us
not
how do you
buying this
really feel?
robot?
The key is to make it cute.
and then he
That
says,
that
He's
was
When
my
it
buying it.
talks about
question.
security, like security surveillance, if you put security surveillance in your house, it's connected to Wi-Fi. Anybody can log into that anyway. So, especially the company that installed it.
It's not like data have leaked from Amazon ring bells before. So, what kind of time frame do you have?
he says, bottom line, Amazon makes its money collecting and exploiting our data. It's worth $1 trillion because of our data. The more data we give it, the richer it gets. We should not be paying for hardware, let alone a subscription fee to collect our data, especially when the robot is a little more useful than a Roomba with an Echo Show and a cup holder strapped to it. Oh, that last bit's pretty
Yes,
much right
that's
on.
what I said last time. How better is it than the Roomba that just moves around and
I was gonna say he's writing as if he has privacy, like he thinks he has privacy all year round on everything else.
Well,
Yeah, I was
to
gonna say, this is just another device. It is absolutely an IoT device, and I heard reviews on it on Friday. It's out in beta now, and it's absolutely going to be collecting data on you. But what are its intended uses? It's they were talking about, as you said, the security. If it's got facial recognition, so you're giving consent to that. Is everybody that knows your home? I guess you're giving consent on their behalf. But if it's unrecognized people come in, it can alert. Will it alert security? Possibly, if it's tied into another security system. It just depends on what its uses are and what it's intended to do. And honestly, other uses that come to mind are a lot of the pharma companies and all of those using robots to remind people to take their meds, or these have also been shown to help elderly people who are lonely. So it depends on the case. I mean, his point that it's expensive and that it is absolutely gathering data on you is true, but whether that can be used to your benefit is also a question. I mean, there's obviously the other side to everything you said.
Tyler, do you know what just hit me? The thing is here that the disruption in WhatsApp communication together with Facebook, might it be that there's something going on somewhere that needs to be disrupted in the form of a riot or something like that? That's why they pulled the plug on it.
how's the situation with Korea, China, and over there?
Exactly what I was
Yep.
aiming for without saying it.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, so the next one
Do we have
is
anyone from Taiwan in the room right now? Like John?
BB.
BB? Okay. I
Mhm.
mean, that's the other place to really watch, right? Taiwan and Hong Kong.
Oh, BB's got her hand up. Here we go. I just
sorry, I may have missed it, but how much
And
is the
as for
Amazon
China,
Astra?
they can use it originally, so don't worry about China. They don't have Facebook at all.
It's
I
on.
was gonna say China doesn't even
Well,
have it.
It,
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
more about like lack of reporting coming out of other places in the world that kind of people use Facebook as their way to get in touch with others in the world. If it's down, we can't really get this third party reporting. Is I think what someone was getting towards.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
especially the
Mm-hmm.
WhatsApp.
a website called data. What's the name of it? It's called there's a website that you can report if it's down. So that was a lot of reports in the past 30 minutes. On the Twitter account,
down detector.
Facebook. Yeah, the Facebook account on Twitter, just tweeted that. Yeah, it amended that the service is down.
The
So,
thing that I actually aim for is the WhatsApp application that actually owned by Facebook and is down as well. And this has been known to be used by collaborators, to use a funny term for it, to plan and do things in the shadows of this end-to-end encrypted thing. And the thing is here about, might it be that they killed WhatsApp and they did actually get Facebook and Instagram together with it, as it is a bystander, just because they shared the space. You undone.
My friend's saying that there's some kind of Panama Papers that came out, identified government officials, celebrities, and they're shutting down to prevent spread of information. That's one theory.
and the website that you can check is called Down Detector. The name is Down Detector.
okay. So shall we do the next one here is Snopes has debunked the idea that Pfizer's what is this? The Pfizer has a new drug that is a and then some people were claiming that it's just ivermectin dressed up by Pfizer, and that's been debunked. It's not. The protease inhibitors are a class of antiviral drugs that have been used to treat other diseases, and they're not ivermectin. It's not the same thing as some people were thinking. So that's been debunked. And then the next article is blockchain-based system for real estate launches in India. And this is one of the best use cases for blockchain ever, and excited to see who will take it on first. And maybe it'll be India. And the Taliban denies presence of Chinese troops at Afghanistan's airport. And what else? Apple and Disney among companies backing groups against U.S. climate bill. Amazon and Microsoft also supporting lobbying groups fighting legislation despite promises to combat climate crisis. Well, this is from The Guardian, and there could be other things in that bill that they disagree with other than the climate thing. Then Facebook does not believe it's the primary cause of polarization, an executive tells CNN. A Facebook executive said in an interview on Sunday with CNN that the company does not believe that the social service is the primary contributor to polarization. And the New York Times is writing about the Aussie network, OZY. The story behind the story is about the elite investors who plowed millions into Media Dream without much due diligence, persuaded by the charm of Ozzy's founder. And just a whole lot of fraud happening there.
There's a big story. So Cal actually thought you were going to do a deep dive on it when he did his earlier room.
Yeah.
I mean, the Ozzy thing is a big story. It's almost like the Theranos for the media industry. It's really big.
Yeah. And can you say more?
Oh yeah. Okay. So basically, Ozzy is a company. It's kind of like a lot of these new, social media things. A lot of them haven't done well financially. Vice, and you can just go on and on. And so Ozzy was something that was very charismatic leader. The guy named after him, right? And he was able to get all these celebrities together from different fields, kind of like he viewed it as like Coachella meets TED, type of thing, and but a lot of it was mostly fluff, but they got a massive valuation on it. And the whole thing came apart in the past week. Okay. What happened was they were trying to raise another round of financing. They were having a conference call with Goldman Sachs. There was always some dispute about exactly how good their YouTube numbers were, whether, you've got things that they paid for, or it's mostly just, Ozzy's, there was some concern about like exactly what their reach was. So they had, Ozzy had their second in command basically impersonate a YouTube executive. And so they're doing this conference call, and somebody notices that this voice doesn't sound correct. Then right after they kill the call, and then they come out immediately and say, well, and they admitted to it that this guy basically was impersonating a YouTube guy. There was nobody on YouTube on the call, and it's all because he had a mental breakdown type of thing, supposedly. Okay. Then about a day or two later, again, a guy named Mark Lazary, who's very well known in the hedge fund world, very big hedge fund guy, who was the chairman of this company, like non-executive chairman. So he was there also for the BV optics. He comes out and makes an announcement I've almost never seen before. Well, it looks like this company is moving to a point where the main skill level is going to need to be like investigations and stuff, and I'm not really suited for that, so he's leaving. And basically, they announced that they closed the company, I think, last night or yesterday. So they're basically shutting down. All the employees are gone. and this thing just went from this huge thing to zero, like overnight. And they had like if you actually go back and you'll find there's a YouTube with Alex Rodriguez, the baseball player. For those of you who don't know baseball, one of the more famous baseball players of all time, and J Lo's boyfriend or ex boyfriend or something. She's the ex. She's back with Ben Affleck, but they were together. Okay, but anyway, so Alex Rodriguez is a major figure, and he had like basically was pitching Ozzy also like 2 years ago, and now he admits he got paid to do it. But if you look at the interview, the stuff that he was doing 2 years ago, they came up with this whole thing between him and Ozzy about, well, we have this in common. We went to the same school, or this and that, and all of the same issues with Facebook. Are you doing it for the good of the world, or you're doing it for something else? And now finally, at least Alex Rodriguez is admitting, I did it because they gave me a check. So anyway, so that's kind of the story, because it was supposed to be this new great big media play, and it basically disintegrated overnight.
Which brings up the point that it's not that easy to create a news organization. One of the selling points that this guy had, I forget his name, Watson, is it? Or
Yeah, Watson. Yeah, I think.
Watson.
Yeah.
He promised a sort of middle of the road, try to lower the temperature. He was, he had a nice background, African American from graduating from Harvard, worked at Goldman Sachs, and it shows that the he was able to sell all these people in tech field on this new type of journalism, supposedly that he was going to develop. And so he had to use a lot of smoke and mirrors because there was really nothing there, and right out lied. But the incredible thing is that these people who you would think were sort of like at the top of their field, all of these investment bankers or tech people, uh, um, Jobs Powell, Jobs' wife was part of this,
Oh yeah, she was a big
supporting him.
initial investor. Yeah.
Right. So they all got suckered into this, and in fact, one of the people who was pushing for these companies to be advertising more in black media companies said this really hurt us, because instead of them doing that, they all sort of poured their money into this enterprise, and it really it didn't amount to anything. So it became a mess all around, and I don't think anyone wants to remember it after a few years that they were part of this.
So Watson's out right now, by the way, like an hour ago, saying that the Ozzy's not closing down. But I think that may just be him saying it. I don't know who's going to believe him. But I mean, because I don't know if the employees are reporting to work anymore. So
Whatever you say, OnlyFans, we believe you.
It's another unfortunate, like you said, the Theranos case, and it's unfortunate. But just like you can't be doing. And did you mention the Ozzy Osbourne, the Ozfest trademark issue?
well, they're related, by the way. You know about, right?
What do you mean?
Ozzy Fest was from Ozzy Media.
Right. No, what I mean is, so they had this event called Ozzy Fest. Ozzy Osbourne has a thing called Ozfest, and has had it for quite a while. So Ozzy Osbourne's wife, Sharon, is like,
Karen completely, yeah, she went really bad on him.
right. So she said, you can't do that, and so they settled, and then the guy from Ozzy Media, who has this kind of has a little bit of a problem with being perfectly straight, said on TV, on like a really popular like morning TV show, oh yeah, so Ozzy Osbourne and Cheryl, originally they sued us, and then we've settled, and now they're investors. And he said it as if like, because we're so good, because they came around and saw the light of day and realized that we're so fantastic that so hence, you should not have any questions either. So they checked us out and they went from suing us to being investors. And then Sharon Osbourne, came out and said, no, that's not what happened. We're not investors.
She
And
called him the biggest shyster she's ever known.
right. So, ouch, just ouch, ouch, ouch. And then he defended himself today by saying, well, in the settlement, we gave them shares in the company. So, they're investors because you have shares in the company. And that's, well,
And speaking of the Ozzy Fest, and I may get this wrong because I don't want to get something wrong because all the stuff with people getting things wrong. So I might be off by this, but I know there's a story, something around this. I'm not sure which year it was on one of the Ozzy Fest to market it. They were using phony photographs. They were trying to say, they wanted to say we're going to do it on the what's it called, the main lawn, the big lawn. I should know this because I'm from New York at Central Park. Um, but they were not using photos from their own festival. They were using photos from Global Citizen and making it look like this is like what Ozzy Fest is going to be, or Ozzy Fest was the year before. So I mean, there's a lot of stuff like that.
yeah, that's just, what are you doing? And especially when you've got multiple, simultaneous, just, if you have one of those, people will forgive you. But when we just named 3 or 4, it becomes toxic.
This is they were going to shut down and declare bankruptcy, and now they're not. I just saw that they were not
That's
declaring
what
bankruptcy.
the CEO is saying, but he might be the only employee left. So who knows?
That guy doesn't sound like. If you ever heard him, like clips of him, he doesn't always sound like his mental stability is his primary focus.
I watched an interview with him right before we opened this room, and he seems very intelligent, but
I think he's very smooth. Yeah, I agree with you, Tyler. I think the guy's very smooth. That's how he was able to sell this.
yeah, there's
And
I don't
What's
know.
your gut tell you though?
He's got this piece going on about this being his Lazarus moment and stuff. I don't know. I mean, whatever.
no,
I
that's
heard
today's news.
the clip that I
Alexander, that's
heard.
that's the
today's
interview
news.
I saw.
Yeah, the clip that I heard of him, which was a while ago, it's not recent, was a little off, right? But I don't watch regular clips of him. I don't know. Ordinarily, he sounds great, and everything together. I just watched one, and I was like, okay, this is interesting. But Ozzy was growing, well, I thought, but I guess they had too much turnover, and a lot of stuff happened and went wrong. Um, but
Well, it wasn't growing well. But there's a point that there was issues with the metrics, and they got caught, I think, with bad metrics. And this call with Goldman Sachs, what would happen? They were trying to verify some of the YouTube metrics, and they
yeah, the
couldn't get.
fake YouTube thing,
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah.
totally Trumpy, right?
This is an instance of where I know we've been critical of the New York Times, not all of us, but and we should be, which is a good sign because they they always get attacked from the left and the right, so everyone's attacking them. I mean, I don't agree with everything that they do, but I think they're a great institution. But it was Ben Smith and other reporters there who really broke this story and sort of exposed it, and it really saved a lot of further grief for uh, all these people who were investing, who had already put so much money into it, and also the people who were working there, who were really true journalists. And this guy Watson was just sort of the ringmaster. And so that's an instance of a public service to a lot of people. So you take the bad with the good, and you have to really sort of weigh it.
It's unfortunate. So, other headlines here from Dr. Fran from CNBC. Amazon rolls out early Black Friday deals to jumpstart holiday shopping. Amazon said it's offering deep discounts across every category, including fashion, electronics, home goods, and toys. It's a little early, isn't it? That's the day after Thanksgiving. We're talking 2 months from now. Wow.
There's going to be no inventory. That's the issue. There's going to be no inventory, guys.
I wonder if they'll encourage you to.
Yeah, I don't think it's that early. I think that they've been pushing like pre-Halloween Christmas sales for several years now.
Come on, this is America.
2 months ahead of Black Friday? Come on.
Yeah, they did it last year also. I'm telling you,
Jesus.
I think it's like the last 2 years that it's
In
been like
Thailand
this.
too long, Tyler.
She's right. This is not new. They've been doing this. Yeah.
Okay, next up. Next one is from Poppy from BBC News. The King of Jordan secretly spent more than $100 million on property empire in the UK and US, including, I believe, in Malibu. Leaked financial documents identify a network of secretly owned firms used by the King of Jordan to buy 15 homes since he assumed power in 1999, 20 years ago. Not bad.
Do we got a location on that place in Malibu? I don't have anything going on this afternoon.
I have the documents if you need.
Okay.
All right, I'll take a drive.
Next one, also from Bibi, from South China Morning Post. Chinese AI has new ethical guidelines that curb big tech's algorithms. China released its first set of guidelines on AI ethics as the country seeks to become the industry leader while cracking down on the influence of big tech. And one of the essentially the big new policy change is any AIs must be opt-outable by the user, which that's going to be wild to see how that happens. And BB sends in this one, also from South China Morning Post, that China to bar overseas transfer of core industrial telecoms data. New regulation drafted by the Ministry of Industry and Information Technology seeks to bar the transfer of crucial industrial and telecoms data outside China. And that, if you know the history of China, this is incredibly ironic. And they are supremely familiar with the value of importing and exporting technology. They like to import it. They don't like to. But they're banning the exporting of it.
Just like money. If you earn the money in China, it's really hard to get it out of China.
Just like money, yeah. Crypto miners are being blamed for a power supply deficit in Kazakhstan. Government mulls restrictions. So Kazakhstan's facing electricity shortages, and cryptocurrency mining has been singled out as the main culprit. Amid an ongoing crackdown in China, the Central Asian nation has become a magnet for crypto miners who are taking advantage of its low electricity rates. That's the problem. So the miners, some of them went to Kazakhstan because many of them were in Inner Mongolia, so it's not that far, honestly. It makes sense, especially if they knew it was going to get shut down in China.
And winter is coming. Winter in Kazakhstan is about as cold as it can get.
Yeah. And Todd McLeese sends in this one from the Wall Street Journal. It says, robots take over Italy's vineyards as wineries struggle with COVID-19 workers shortages. Italian winemakers have increasingly relied on migrant workers for the autumn harvest, but COVID-19 travel restrictions and soaring wages costs are pushing robots and automation. Geez, have we read this article every day for the past few months, or is it just me? Here it comes. Here it comes. The automation revolution.
Well, if you think about farming in general, right? When the tractor came out, how did that change farming completely?
That was my study in university. I'm a little too familiar with that topic. It's called the Luddites. They attacked the machines. What about? Yeah, is anyone interested in selling pitchforks? There's going to be a lot of money made.
I've been saying it for a long time. The pitchforks are coming very soon, folks. We just got to be very aware of it.
Machine sabotage, and perhaps this Facebook outage might somehow be related to big tech sabotage. We will see. Seems very
that's interesting.
really peculiar. So next up is
You forgot the conspiracy music, though.
well, I just got a DM by somebody claiming to potentially have done this. I'm just going to leave that right there.
That deserves music.
Chris, what did you do, Chris?
Now it's nobody who's in the room at the moment.
I was just browsing Instagram, and then a bunch of Asian models showed up.
I was
Isn't
Tyler,
your
just
climate
tell
activist?
Tyler, just tell us off the record. We won't tell anyone.
Well, they just
Climate
did you.
Tyler,
By
don't
the way,
say anything.
did you just hear a ding because they just sent me
Yes.
a follow up message, and I, without revealing the person, no, this new message is not related. Yeah,
Could it be climate activists?
not in this case. Not the one I'm referring to. Okay.
Did you tweet a first name?
Bengaluru 3-day work week. Bengaluru startup offers 3-day work week.
And sorry, Damolair is down in the audience. He has something to add.
Okay,
Sorry.
perfect. So a Bengaluru startup is offering a 3-day work week to attract tech talent. What's up, Damolair? Break it down for us. So we've got Damolair. Are you there? I invited you up.
Oh yeah. I'm here.
Okay.
No, it wasn't on Discord, but
Alrighty. Well, that brings us back to the top of the hour. I have something urgent to attend to, so we're going to pause.
Yep. We have a room coming up next.
Oh, that's right, in 3 minutes. So who's doing that one?
Alexandra, Jennifer.
Oh, right, all about
myself.
NFTs. Perfect.
Use cases, security, and legal aspects of NFT.
Can you pop that one open for us so we can jump in there? There you go. So we'll jump into the NFT basics room to learn all about the use cases, security, and legalities of NFTs. It should be fun. I hope you join us, and thank you. And it's now open. So we'll see you over there, and thank you for joining us for another Tech News Around the World.
Thanks, Tyler.
All right, everybody.